Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to Bjorn Does Movies. I'm Bjorn, and I do movies. And today I've got a really special surprise for y'all. I bet a lot of you didn't know this was coming. I have done nothing to indicate that it's coming, so surprise, we're doing the Suicide Squad 4. A couple of weeks ago, like 4 weeks ago, I really popped up with an idea for this while I was writing Deadlands, which will be continuing, by the way. I'm just going to kind of alternate like Suicide Squad, Deadlands, back and forth. So I had this really awesome idea for where I could take the Suicide Squad, and I was like, well, I'm definitely going to go with that. I have to really write this out, so I came up with my cast of characters, and I wrote down my ideas, and I fleshed it out into a two-parter. Two different movies that are back-to-back, like Infinity War Endgame, which I'm going to say will end my iteration of the Suicide Squad probably permanently. I don't have any real plans moving the series forward, and I think this will be a kind of conclusive end to my little headcanon fictionalized version. This does have continuity with my last one, so if you haven't seen my writing the Suicide Squad 3 video, here's a link. It's in a very convenient full series where I just edited all the videos together. Go drop a view on that, and 2.5 hours later, sorry it's very long, you can come back here and be caught up if you're still interested. So, and if not, you can watch this. It does stand alone. Just some characters are carryovers from that last film, and some plot points are carryovers from the previous film. So, bear that in mind. This does have continuity with that last series. That being said, let's play Oh No, My Grandson again, because we're going to introduce our squad again. So let's get the carryovers out of the way. We have, I think it's three carryovers from the last film. First, our most popular character in the poll I did after the last film is Sportsmaster, the man who can throw a football. Like, really good, guys. He's really good at sports. He's the same. I'm making no changes to him. He worked pretty well. He's the same guy. He could throw a football. Sportsmaster, folks. Up next, we've got Flatline, one of the other few survivors of my last film. She is also a carryover to this film and will be one of the main characters. Same as last time, she can speak to the dead. She's like a punk teen, and she really, really likes Japanese city pop, as cringe as that is. And our last carryover, none other than Clock King, who will be getting also a lot of attention in this film. I'm going to be fleshing out his backstory quite a bit, because for those who don't know, Clock King actually has one of the most interesting and tragic backstories in the entire DC canon, in my opinion. He has the potential to be an incredible villain. It's just right there, but no one's quite tapped into it outside of that original story. And he's kind of been relegated as a joke villain. And so I will be showing his backstory, and we'll be fleshing him out quite a bit in this film. So you can look forward to seeing a lot more of Clock King and where he'll go. Alright, let's get into the new members. This is what I know most people are excited for, to see what other characters I'm going to pull out. And I will give the same sort of blanket warning to comics fans that I gave when I wrote my last one. These characters will not be the same as they appear on page. In fact, there's a couple of these guys who I'm making really significant changes to. Just like I did last time. I think often people are afraid to change the canon of characters when they're adapting them into movies, and it could be to the film's detriment. So I am not afraid to change characters who I think need a revamp or have to be retooled to fit my idea and my vision. So that is a blanket warning. Alright, let's get into the squad. Our first new member is none other than Chemo. Now in the comic books, this guy is a big sort of living piece of radioactive plastic who was created by a mad scientist out of garbage. I'm not particularly a big fan of this character. He seems to be very similar to other monster DC characters in that he's like a comically evil, zero motivation sort of monster that destroys everything and sprays radiation everywhere, and is very simple and doesn't say much. And it's just a very boring villain. That's a villain trapped straight out of like a 90s Power Ranger cartoon. The living radioactive man. And I think this is one of the characters I'm going to give a very, very large revamp to, because I think you see a lot of characters like this who start as very goofy one-note villains, and then they get like reimagined. I would point to Dr. Freeze as a big example and an inspiration for what I was going for with my revamp of this character. So, revamped Chemo. What's his backstory, what's his abilities? Now, we will touch on it in the film a few times, but I'll go ahead and give a blanket overview. Chemo is a 22-year-old kid. He is diagnosed with terminal cancer in the brain, the lungs. It's metastasized all over his body, and he is dying. He's still in college, so he's dying, and he tries everything. You know, shamanism, all these different things, chemotherapy, everything, and eventually they kind of give up, and he settles in with his girlfriend and his family and waits to die. A really tragic story, but hope arises when someone offers him an experimental form of chemotherapy. A very, very brazen and new one that has not undergone any human trials yet. It's been approved, and they offer young Chemo here the chance to become the first test subject, to which he agrees. What does he have to lose, so he thinks. And as a consequence, the chemical obviously doesn't work, and it leaves Chemo a walking radioactive disaster. Everywhere he goes, he sets off Geiger counters. He kills anyone around him, including his family and the doctors who were standing by his side while he received this experimental chemotherapy. As a result, he has been locked up in special containment inside of Belle Reve, so that he can't hurt or harm anyone else. So my new version of Chemo is sort of a tragic monster, unlike the original one where he's just a straight-up monster. This is a kid who was just desperate to stay alive, and as a result wound up hurting the people he loves, and through no fault of his own. And we're going to really flesh him out in this, and we're going to get to see a lot of him. So how does he function in the Suicide Squad, you ask? He's a big, walking, radioactive monster that kills everyone around him. Well, Waller has thought of everything, and she's designed a special suit made from lead and other radioactive resistant materials to sort of give him a walking suit of armor that protects others from him. And he can open small parts of it to release radiation in like a ray. So yeah, that's Chemo, our first new member. Rainbow Raider, a classic goofy character. He's going to be our Superman for this movie. Straight up tell y'all. He's going to be the guy that people go, what? That guy's in the movie? Wow, zany, the guy who rides on rainbows and shoots laser beams. No way. So yeah, it's Rainbow Raider. One of the classic Suicide Squad members. I think he's been in like some form of almost every iteration of it, more or less. He's kind of like Boomerang in that way. So, we're finally going to see him in my world. Alright, our next character is going to be none other than Battering Ram. He's got little like sheep horns on his head, and he can run right into things and sort of smash through walls. He's like a much, much lamer version of Juggernaut from the Marvel comic books. Yeah, it's Battering Ram. There he is, folks. Get excited. Up next, I have a character who is fulfilling my, what I call the 3-paragraph or less challenge. And every movie I've written of the Squad, or any franchise probably going forward, I try to pick a character who has 3 paragraphs or less written about them on Wikipedia as I look at. And this character had a whopping 2, if I recall, with very little information about them. But there was something about this character that really jumped out at me, and I was like, ooh, I have to do this guy. I like him. And this character is the Hat, a guy who briefly fights Superman. I think it was Superman. And he has a magic hat that he can pull things out of. So I don't know what the angle is with this guy. He is, for some reason, bafflingly, the second hat-themed antagonist. Actually, no, there's 3. There's like Hat Thief or something, or Hat Man. The Hat Man. So there's 3 hat-themed, hat-adjacent DC characters, not including Dr. Fate. That, of course, being Mad Hatter, the Hat, and the Hat Man. I don't know what it is with hats. So, what is the Hat in my script? Well, he is a member of the Suicide Squad, clearly, and he has the ability to store things in his hat. He has a pocket dimension, a magically induced pocket dimension hidden inside of his top hat that he wears. And he can pull anything that's been stored out of it. And this magic hat has been passed down for generations through a family until it eventually reached the Hat. And he's used its capabilities to steal, rob, kill, maim, whatever. I'm not really going to go too far into why he's in Belle Reve. This might be something that comes up later. And you might be saying, whoa, magic. You haven't done magic before. And that's right, I have not done magic. Previously, these squads have sort of encountered science-based threats, not including the first Suicide Squad movie, which I hate and won't count. They've encountered mad scientists, people making scientific technology. So I think the logical next step to take the squad is into the realm of magic. The DC Comics universe has a huge supernatural sort of back catalog. And I flipped through several of the characters and then eventually sort of amalgamated a bunch of them into one character, who we'll get into when I talk about what the squad will be fighting. But for now, know that this story does involve magic, and we will see the squad encounter magic in a big way. Alright, so that is the Hat. So who's next? Our next character is none other than Electrocutioner 3. This is the third guy to wear the Electrocutioner suit, and the brother of the original Electrocutioner. He has, he's Electro. Let's just be real here. He's worse Electro. He has a technologically built suit that allows him to emit large amounts of electricity from his body, and he fights Batman and Robin, and he robs banks and is a mercenary. He's exactly what you're imagining. He shoots electricity from his body, and maybe there's more to him than that. Maybe there isn't, and maybe we'll get into it. I don't know, and you don't know. I like Electrocutioner, and I had actually contemplated using Bolt. A commenter recommended that character to me, and I settled on Electrocutioner instead. But, mind you, commenter, you know who you are. You commented on my last video. I did take some influence from you to pick another character on this list. I looked down all the characters you recommended, because I hadn't heard of a couple of them, and I settled on one. So that's really cool, and thanks for that. I appreciate it a lot. If anyone else wants to recommend me characters, the sequel to this, I'm still building my cast, so if you've come out with someone I've never heard of that's really cool, hit me up with that, because I will definitely take a look. Up next, we've got a classic Suicide Squad character. This guy has appeared never as an actual member of the team, but someone who helps them, and will be pivotal to our plot, especially in this, towards the end of this movie, and that is Shade the Changing Man. He comes from an alternate dimension called Meta, and has a magic sort of technological magic fusion suit that allows him to project himself as your worst nightmare, sort of like a boggart from Harry Potter. And he is going to play a pivotal role in helping the squad against the particular threat for these movies. One other character that will appear is Lilith Clay. This is a character associated with the Teen Titans and has been both a hero and a villain. Currently she is in Belle Reve because she was a villain in this universe. She has the ability to see someone's future as long as she's interacting with them. Which Waller has been using to predict her own death, and when it'll happen and how it'll happen. Alright, we've got one last character to talk about, and then we'll get into the villain and the actual plot. This guy is a vigilante. He's a Batman character, and he carries around big scythes that he uses to kill people. He's basically like what would happen if Batman just straight up murdered people and had no, care for life. And he's kind of fun in that way. We'll get to see him a little bit in this movie, so be on the lookout for that character. That is the Reaper. There he is, folks. So, let's talk about our antagonists. I know I've said this a lot with several different things, but this movie is a heist. I like heists, and I've always find that they lend themselves very well to the Suicide Squad characters. I haven't done a Suicide Squad heist yet, although my Deadlands series is technically a heist. Although the heist hasn't actually started yet, where that is. So, let's talk about what they're stealing. Amanda Waller has been chasing ghosts and rumors for a while because, as I revealed in my little fake in-credit scene from the last movie, she has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, much like Chemo. And she does not want to die. Amanda Waller is sort of a coward. She will do anything and everything to save herself and help her own. So she has been following rumors about something that will allow her to resurrect herself from the dead. A solidified piece of the Lazarus Pit, sort of like a magic stone. Another very similar thing to Deadlands. I swear to God, it's a coincidence, folks. She wants it so she can resurrect herself after she dies of her cancer. Lilith Clay told Waller exactly how she foresaw her death, and we'll see that in the film. And Waller is trying everything in her power to sort of avoid that fate. So, Waller has been trying to pursue this magic Lazarus stone all across the world, and has been using Lilith Clay to see how close she is to, getting it. So, let's get into our antagonists. Who are they? Who is the squad up against? Well, a rival heist group has been stealing the stone seemingly at every point and harassing Waller and the squad. Every time the squad gets close to taking it, it just vanishes again as this organization takes it away. This organization is led by Nightshade, a woman with shadow powers. The ability to control shadows and do all these things with shadows, teleport through shadows. We're not going to go too far into her. I'll put a pin in her until the actual script comes out, because we're going to pop into her motivations. But she is not alone. She has a daring team of fellow heisters, who we'll see two of in this film. Our first one is Gentleman Ghost, a man who has the ability to turn himself into a ghost, who also happens to be from the 1800s and has lived for a very, very long time. A fun character. Calculator. Calculator is returning from my previous movie, as I teased at the end of that series, and we're going to get to see some more Calculator and his misadventures since he somehow escapes the cult. What's he up to? How does he handle the loss of his previous leader? And how does he factor into this gang of thieves? And then, of course, a classic DC villain, Orca, a woman marine biologist who has the ability to transform herself into a gigantic orca whale man. Pretty cool. So those are our villains. Waller and the squad are trying to go across the country to several different locations to find and steal this Lazarus stone before Waller dies. So we've got a ticking clock element, and this other rival heist organization is pursuing them at every point. And maybe that's all the story is, or maybe there's something deeper and more interesting going on. Maybe they've just scratched the surface of a large conspiracy. You'll have to find out. And again, this is a two-parter, which means it's got a larger and more over-encompassing story than my previous film. It is going to be a little more smaller scale in that I have a smaller team, as you might have noticed. Do not be mistaken, I'm going to kill a lot of people. I did it before and I'm going to do it again, so don't get too attached. As for the theme, I always talk about the themes of my movie. And my theme for this two-parter is fear of death and facing one's own mortality, and a theme of learning to become a hero. Like we've seen in the previous Squad movies, this is a pretty common theme, but I'm going to really flesh it out in these movies. And in addition, there'll be some other themes going around. Maybe I'm keeping the cat in the bag for a little bit until we get more into the story. So that is my pitch. We are going to be writing the script as is typical. I've already started, and probably before Christmas or just after Christmas, I will have recorded and uploaded the first part. So y'all who are fans of my previous series will probably get a kick out of this. So you can look forward to that. There is a lot more material in this that I can actually talk about in this. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, as you can tell. I'm kind of grinning because I can think of all the fun things that are going to happen in this and where the story is actually going. And so yeah, you all can look forward to that. Let me know what you think. Suggest characters. Give me some ideas. Just generally, I'll try to answer every comment. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Alright, that's all. I'll talk to you all later. Hi, I'm Bjorn and I do movies, and today we are recording part 2 of my Suicide Squad 4. That's going to get really confusing really quickly. Today we're going to cover the first act, and I'm not really going to waste a lot of your time. Just remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm calling this movie The Suicide Squad Society of Shadows. We are going to open on the Las Vegas skyline as the song A Good Song Never Dies by Saint Motel begins to play. We zoom towards a casino and see it's called Gallios. This is a reference to supervillain Anthony Gallo, who will appear briefly in this movie. A nice car pulls up and we see Flatline exit. She's dressed in a black and silver dress. Flatline makes as if to sweep away a loose hair and then activates a comm in her ear. She says, "I'm in place." We're gonna cut to the sewer. We'll see Electrocutioner and Battering Ram wading through water. Electrocutioner taps his earpiece. He says, "The sewer team is in position and ready to be out of here." We're going to cut back to Flatline as she walks into the casino. She's going to say, "Clock King, are you still good?" We'll cut to Clock King as he slides on a waiter's tux from an unconscious waiter. We see Rainbow Raider tying a rainbow-colored tie onto his. Clock King notices. "What is that? That's not standard issue." Rainbow Raider says, "Relax, nobody's going to notice. I have to have a rainbow. It's my thing." He pulls out a packet of Skittles and tries to offer one to Clock King. "Just take a Skittle and don't think about it." He tries to hand over the Skittles again. Clock King says, "Take it off," and refuses to take a Skittle. Rainbow Raider says, "No, I already told you it's my thing." Clock King says, "If your fucking tie blows this operation, I'll kill you myself." Rainbow Raider just smiles and straightens his rainbow tie. He pops a handful of Skittles into his mouth. Clock King taps his earpiece. We are in position. Clock King and Rainbow Raider then split up and head towards separate hallways. We're going to cut to the sewers as Electrocutioner starts to cut through the pipe with his electricity. He taps his earpiece as he does and says, "I'm starting to cut. Let's see if Flatline can make sparks fly." We cut to Flatline and she approaches a man at the bar. She taps her ear slightly and says, "That's a groaner, Lester. My target is in sight. The mission is a go." Flatline sits next to the man at the bar. She orders a drink, then turns to face him. "Do I know you from somewhere? I swear I've seen you before." He turns and looks her up and down. "Maybe you've seen my face on the news. I own this place." Flatline says, "That's it, you're Anthony Gallo. I'm a big fan." He says, "Oh, really? And what do you think of my casino, miss?" She says, "Miss Christine, I think it's lovely. Of all the casinos I've been to, this is my favorite. I've visited 3 times now." Gallo says, "A repeat guest.
I'm glad to have your business. Flatline says, how about some more? Can I buy you a drink? And he says he'd like that. We're going to cut to Rainbow Raider. He walks up to a door and then scans a key card that he took off one of the guards. He enters a large security room. A guard sits in a chair and watches the screen. He turns when Rainbow Raider enters. He says, who are you? He says, I'm your relief. I'm supposed to take your post. The guard says, no one told me I was getting relieved. Rainbow Raider says, well, they told me. They want you on the casino level. The guard says, what? They've been getting weirder about postings. Rainbow Raider says, tell me about it. Guard looks him over and says, what's with the tie? You're not supposed to wear that. Rainbow Raider looks awkwardly from side to side and says, what are you talking about? The guard stands up. Not to be distrusting, but can I see your ID? We see Rainbow Raider reach towards his suit pocket. The guard slides a hand towards his gun. Suddenly, Rainbow Raider jerks his hand out of his pocket and blasts rainbow energy from his hand. It makes a giant hole in the guard's chest. Blood splays everywhere, and the dead guard flops over. We're going to cut to the bar. We see several empty drinks in front of Gallo. You know, dangerous men like to lurk around Vegas. It can be very unsafe for a woman without a guide. Flatline says, they should be afraid of me. I'm a dangerous woman. Gallo laughs and smiles. I'm in fear for my life. Flatline says, oh, believe me, I'm worth dying for. She reaches over her hand and slides a card into his pocket. We see as she does, she pulls another card out. My extra room key card, 605. Visit me tonight. She gets up and walks away. When she's a good bit away, she taps her ear. She says, I got the card, heading to the rendezvous point. Clock King says, good work. How's everything on CCTV? We cut to Rainbow Raider as he slowly drags the body away. He props it behind a file cabinet. He says, I'm so fucked. He turns and looks at the camera. He wipes blood away from a couple, then taps his ear. Everything's good on my end, all perfect here. Clock King says, good. Let's keep it that way. We don't want any unnecessary attention. We see Rainbow Raider sort of awkwardly look towards the dead body. We're going to cut to Clock King. He walks down the hall and sees Flatline. The two join up. Flatline says, that guy was as sleazy as they come. Waller understood him. Did all that work for nothing. Clock King says, you did well. This is all going very smoothly. Flatline says, a dangerous thing to say. They enter the elevator and scan Gallo's card, and then select the button labeled Vault. The elevator begins to move down. We see Clock King pull out a pistol and slowly screw on a silencer. He says, now for the hard part. The elevator door dings and then opens. Clock King turns and shoots a security guard before he can react. Clock King taps his watch. Team 3 is running late. They should have been here. As soon as he says it, a huge chunk of the wall blows open. We see Battering Ram run forward and stop. The electrocutioner climbs in behind him. Flatline says, you made it. Electrocutioner says, I'm never going into a sewer again. Couldn't even use my suit in there if I wanted to. I'd fry everyone. Flatline says, relax, Sparky. I've done it before. It's not so bad. Clock King taps his watch. No time for chatting. The vaults are just ahead. Battering Ram looks at it and says, this puny vault won't stand a chance. Time won't be an issue. They enter the vault room. We see a large steel vault door. A guard turns from his station to see them. Electrocutioner fires a bolt of electricity from his suit. It engulfs the man in flames, and we see his eyes explode, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, is what happens when you get electrocuted with no water. Electrocutioner says, oh, fuck, I thought I had that on stun. Clock King says, we needed him alive, damn it. He's the one who's supposed to open the vaults. He knows the codes. Electrocutioner changes a dial on his arm. It won't happen again. Battering Ram says, we don't need him at all. I can handle this vault. It doesn't look like it's made of the strong enough stuff to stop these horns. Flatline looks at it and says, it looks like it's solid steel. You sure you're up to it? Battering Ram says, I've destroyed worse. This is a piece of cake. He steps up and puts his head down. He runs full speed at the vault. He hits it hard with a ding, then bounces back. You hear the crack of his neck as it breaks. He falls to the floor dead. Flatline looks at him for a second and says, well, he's dead. Clock King says, I can see that. That's just great. We're following the real backup plan now. No more deviations. Electrocutioner, open up the vault. He says, sure. He drops a welding helmet over his face, and electricity arcs from his hands and forms a sort of giant electric torch. He starts to cut through the vault like it's a lightsaber. On the casino floor, we see a woman in a white and black dress approach a guard. She says, sir, I saw someone unusual enter that back area over there. He didn't look like a security guard. Guards say, oh, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Probably just a drunk. I'll take a look. As he walks off, we see the woman grow a sly smile. He heads right for the security room. We're going to see that Rainbow Raider has his feet propped up and is looking at the ceiling. He checks the monitor and we see a guard approaching. He says, fuck. The door opens and the guard walks in. Rainbow Raider spins to see him. Hey, how are ya? Guard says, can't complain. My wife's birthday is tonight, so I'm going to have a good meal for once. And cake. It's the little things, you know. Rainbow Raider says, I hear that. The guard says, you see anything unusual on the monitors? Got a report of someone stalking around back here. Probably a drunk. Rainbow Raider says, I haven't seen anyone. You're welcome to take a look. Guard says, no, I'm sure it's fine. He looks over Rainbow Raider and says, what's with the tie? Rainbow Raider is going to kind of panic. He's going to go, corporate thing. Guard's going to say, I hadn't heard anything about that. Rainbow Raider's going to go, yeah, it's part of the LGBTQ rights push. They sent a memo. Guard's going to say, oh, okay, I'll have to get myself one. The guard looks towards his feet as we see a pool of blood there. It's running from the dead man in the corner. The guard slightly turns and sees the body. He slams the panic button on his belt just as Rainbow Raider kills him. Rainbow Raider touches his earpiece. Fuck, they found me. Put your asses in gear. We're going to cut to the vault room. We'll see Electrocutioner finish cutting into the vault. He kicks the door and it opens up. We see Flatline dragging Battering Ram's body into the sewer. Clock King enters the room. We've been made. Rainbow Raider got himself seen. Flatline says, damn, we still have the inner vault. I knew we should have put someone else on cams. Clock King says, without the combos from that guard, we're fucked. Flatline says, I got it. She walks over to the guard's body and touches it. We see a ghost with no eyes and burn marks. It glows blue. I can't see. Where am I? It's so cold. It whispers. Flatline says, hey, focus up. Can you hear me? The ghost says, where am I? It's all blackness. Flatline says, I know. I can help you. I just need some help from you first. Today's codes for the vault. What are they? I don't know where I am. I can't feel anything. Flatline says, I know. You have to focus on today's codes. What are they? I wrote the number down in my drawer. The combination that opens it is 743. I just want to go home. Flatline turns to open it and then stops. Do you have any last words or want anyone to know something? The ghost realizes that he's dead. He looks down with sorrow and says, I'm dead. That's right. A man killed me, my wife. Tell her I'm sorry that I couldn't be there to see our daughter. Tell her I love her. Flatline says, I will. Don't worry. The other side isn't so bad. She touches his chest and he vanishes into blue smoke. Flatline moves to the drawer and puts in the code. She takes out the sticky pad with the codes for the vault and hands it to Clock King. As he takes it and enters the vault. Flatline pulls out a piece of paper and begins to write down the man's last wishes. We're going to cut to Rainbow Raider. He's running through the halls of the casino. Two guards turn from a hallway behind him and begin to shoot at him. He blasts rainbows back at them, killing one. He throws another rainbow at his feet and begins to write it. This is his classic comic book thing, you know? He's sliding up and down on the rainbow, avoiding bullets. He bursts into the main casino floor. People are manically running away as guards come out with machine guns and open fire at him. Rainbow Raider blocks and weaves with his rainbows while occasionally firing back. He shoots one right in the face. He laughs. Taste the rainbow, bitch! The security doors on all the windows and doors begin to shut. Rainbow Raider says, fuck. He sees one of the final doors is closing. He shoots towards it at full speed. He's so close to freedom. Then we see a guard step out with an RPG. Rainbow Raider sees it too. His eyes sag as the rocket fires. It hits him and he explodes. All we see of him is his rainbow tie fluttering to the ground. I am so sorry to that one guy who really likes Rainbow Raider. I swear, this was the plan all along. I didn't do this just to fuck with you. You have my condolences for Rainbow Raider. He was one of those guys that gets killed right at the beginning. We're going to cut back to the vault. We watch as Clock King carefully opens one of the safes inside the vault. Electrocutioner, you get it? Clock King says, yeah. He opens the safe, except it's empty. Only a small piece of paper is inside. He lifts it up and we see it says, nice try, Waller. He turns it and on the back we see the words, courtesy of the Society of Shadows. He says, someone beat us here. Flatline walks in and says, that's impossible. We've been watching this vault for days. Clock King says, I'm looking at an empty fucking vault. We hear a ding as the elevator begins to lower itself to their level. Electrocutioner says, we have to go. Flatline says, no need to tell me twice. She starts to go through the hole in the side of the room. Clock King and Electrocutioner follow her. As they run through the sewer, we see the tunnel behind them explode. Rubble fills the hole they escaped through. We cut back to the card inside the vault. Here we're going to do the diegetic title drop. You know, it's a staple of these movies at this point. We're going to see the word The Suicide Squad above the word Society of Shadows. We're going to cut to a doctor's office. We'll see a doctor sitting in a chair with a young man in front of him. He's going to say, do you understand what I'm saying? We'll see Chemo, who is the young man, and he'll say, the chemotherapy isn't working. I have a month to live, maybe 2. The doctor says, I'm afraid we've extinguished almost all conventional options. I'd say you can try to enjoy the time you have left with your loved ones, or there's one more unorthodox option. Chemo's going to ask him what it is. Doctor will say, I have a colleague, a doctor by the name of Ramsey Norton. He's developed a new treatment for aggressive cancers. It is showing great results in the lab. Just a month ago it was approved for human testing. We've been looking for a test subject with suitable conditions. I believe your case might just meet the criteria. It would not be a kind treatment. You may well wish you were dead by the end of it, and I can't guarantee you it will save your life. Chemo's going to say that there's a chance it will save me. The doctor will say, yes, a good chance. Chemo says, I'll think about it. We'll cut to the roof of a house. We see Chemo laying on the top of the roof. He's staring up at the stars. A young woman climbs through a window and joins him. Her name is Kim. She's his girlfriend. Kim says, bad news, I take it. Chemo says, it's fatal. I have 1, maybe 2 months. Kim's going to begin to cry. She'll say, it's going to be okay. 2 months is a long time. Not as long as we would have hoped for, but we have time. She grabs his hand and holds it tight. He says, there's more. The doctor told me they want to test a form of chemotherapy on me. It's cutting edge and dangerous. It would be the first human test. It could cure me, but it could also kill me. Kim asks if he's going to do it, and Chemo says, I think so. What do I have to lose? She replies, your life. And Chemo says, I'm already losing that. I'd give it now for a chance of staying with you. She turns and kisses him. We're going to now cut to a treatment room. We'll see Chemo's hooked up to an IV. He sits in a room surrounded by his parents. A doctor in a lab coat wheels in an IV with a glowing green liquid. Doctor says, you ready? Chemo's mom says, you can always say no, sweetie. It's not too late to stop. Chemo says, it'll be fine, Mom. I'm ready. They hook the IV up to him. We see green liquid begin to fill his veins. They all start to glow green. He begins to cry out and shake in his chair. It hurts! It burns! He yells. The doctor says, it's fine. Some pain is expected. The discomfort won't last too long. Chemo looks up and screams. We'll see that his eyes are green. Blood starts to run from the doctor's nose. Chemo's mother and father also begin to have blood run from their nose. The doctor notices the blood. Something's not right. I feel wrong. The doctor tries to head towards the door but falls to the ground. Chemo's mother and father begin to cough up blood violently. It's running from their eyes and ears now. Like nasty boil blisters begin to pop across their body. Chemo says, what's happening? Someone help! There's something wrong! 3 doctors rush into the room. They make it 4 steps before they too begin to bleed from their noses. Boils appear all over their body, and they quickly fall to the floor. Chemo's parents aren't breathing anymore. He notices and shuts his eyes tight. We're going to cut to the Belle Reeve prison cell. We'll see Chemo laying on a bed with his eyes shut. We focus on his sleeping face. He opens them, and they are glowing green. He sits up and looks around the room. It's sparsely decorated. It has a small bookshelf with a little table and only 1 chair. The front half of the room is a mirror. We zoom out until we're through the mirror, and we see it's actually like a 2-way mirror, and Amanda Waller and Clock King are watching him. Waller says, Matthew Esposito, aka Chemo. 2 years ago, he underwent an experimental form of chemotherapy. It was a disaster. Killed 11 people, including his own parents. The kid is a walking radioactive reaction. Sets off Geiger counters everywhere he goes. He's going to be your replacement for Rainbow Raider. Clock King says, the radioactive man? How the hell is he supposed to help? Waller says, I have my ways. She presses a button on the console. Mr. Esposito, could you hear me? He sits up and turns towards the mirror. Yes, I can hear you. Please approach the phone station. Chemo sighs and walks towards the glass window. He sits down in a chair and picks up the black phone. Waller presses a button and the 2-way mirror becomes a window. He says, what do you want? Waller says, to offer you a chance to leave this prison. Chemo says, I can't leave and you know it. Waller says, I assure you, you can leave. We have developed something to aid you. We have a mission that needs your skills. Chemo says, I'm not interested. I'm too dangerous to be allowed outside. Waller says, we'll see about that. Please step towards the doors of your cell. Chemo looks confused. I'm not supposed to leave here. Waller says, please do as I say. Chemo moves towards the doors. They open. He steps into a room. We see Geiger counters on the wall. As Chemo walks by, they jump to their highest setting and make a clicking sound. It sounds like this, by the way, for those who've never heard it. It's a pretty eerie sound. Waller and Clock King move down the hall a little bit more until they come to a second window. They see Chemo in the room. Waller presses a button on a different panel and a metal suit slides out of the wall. Its back opens up to reveal a sort of diving suit looking thing. This is his protective suit I was talking about. I would compare it to like a diving suit with a plain glass window face so you can see his expressions and whatnot. Just if we had an actor, you could allow him to actually act. Waller says, please step into the suit. Chemo looks unsure, but then climbs into the suit. Waller presses a button and it shuts tight. We hear hissing, and then the Geiger counter stops ticking. Waller presses a different button, and another door opens. Chemo steps forward towards it. Waller says, "Let's go meet your new team member." She and Clock King walk up to him. Chemo says, "You're not dying." Waller says, "No, we're not. That suit is made entirely of radioactive resistant materials. It is an armor designed to keep others safe from you. It can only be opened remotely from here or by another willing party. I doubt you'll find someone willing to remove it for you." "What does this mean? Does this mean I can leave here?" Waller says, "I'm afraid not. Unlike the others, I can't promise to let you out of here, but I can offer you something else." "What is it that you desire?" Chemo says, "Anything?" Waller says, "Within reason." And Chemo says, "I want to see my girlfriend. I don't know where she is, but I'd like to know that she's okay. But I'd like to let her know that I'm okay." Waller says, "What's her full name?" He says, "Kimberly Andrew." Waller says, "I think that can be arranged if you agree to help us on our mission." Chemo says, "What sort of mission?" Waller says, "We'll explain that later. Let us track down your girlfriend, and we'll allow you to visit her." We'll see Waller and Clock King walk into the control room. Clock King says, "Are you sure allowing this kid around is a good idea? He seems unreasonably dangerous." Waller says, "Yes, he's dangerous. That's why I picked him. He's an extremely powerful metahuman whose power is entirely controlled by us. He's perfect. He's also good-tempered and well-meaning. Best of all, the kid's no criminal. Give him what he wants and bring him back. Call it a trial run." Clock King says, "As you say." Then Waller replies, "Talkman, tell me, what do you make of this?" She gestures to a video of a man in a mask. He walks through the hall wall of the security room where the vault was, and then heads right into the vault room. He walks through the walls as though they're nothing. He snags something from the vault and then turns back to the camera. He bows before slipping a piece of paper into the vault. Clock King says, "He didn't even open the vault. Clearly, the man is efficient and experienced. He also knows about you and isn't working alone, judging from the message." Waller says, "You're correct, he wasn't alone. He had a female accomplice and another male accomplice who tipped the guards off to Rainbow Raider. We're working on getting an ID on both." "The Society of Shadows," Clock King says. "A silly name. Juvenile. What did they take?" "What is it that we've been after, Waller?" Waller says, "It's none of your business, Talkman. Take the kid to see his girl and avoid as much attention as possible." Clock King says, "The kid is a walking radioactive robot. I think we'll find that difficult." She hands him a piece of paper, her address and place of work. "You'll make do. You always do." Chemo and Clock King are in a car now. They pull up to a record store. Both of them step out of the car. We see people looking oddly at Chemo. Clock King says, "Make it quick and try not to cause a scene." Chemo says, "I will." He approaches the store, and he stares through the window. We see Kim. She smiles at a shopper and shows them a vinyl disc. Chemo sighs, then walks into the store. We're going to begin to hear the song "The Nightly Met" by Lord Huron, I think. He approaches Kim, and she jumps when she notices him. "Oh, I'm sorry, your outfit." Startled, she notices his face. "Oh my God, Matthew." "What?" He says, "Kim, it's good to see you. I missed you." And she says, "You're alive. I thought you were dead. They said you were all dead. What are you wearing? How are you here?" Chemo says, "I can't tell you that, but I'm okay. Honest. I just was worried about you, wanted to make sure you were okay." She wraps him up in a hug, and he hugs her back. He says, "I missed you so much. It's been so lonely." Kim says, "You don't have to be alone anymore." "But I do," Chemo says. "I have to go, Kim. I made a promise." Kim says, "No, but you can't leave me again. Don't go." And Chemo says, "I have to. This is just going to hurt you again, isn't it?" We're going to smash cut to Chemo watching Kim from the window. Now we're going to realize this was sort of in his head. He was playing out in his mind how this might have gone if he went in there to talk to her. And he realizes, probably correctly, that he would just hurt her by talking to her. So he turns away from the window. "We can go. I got what I needed." "You sure?" Chemo says, "I am." We're going to cut back to Belle Reve. We'll see Waller walking down the hall and approaching his cell. She opens it and we see a redhead woman sitting on the floor surrounded by painted runes. This is Lilith Clay. I mentioned her in the first video. "I knew you would come. You want to ask the same question as always. The answer will be the same." Waller says, "Maybe. Tell me how I die." Waller holds out her hand and Lilith takes it. We see flashes of images. Waller dead on the floor. Blood runs from her mouth in pools. Lilith Clay says, "It is the same. You are dead in a pool of your own blood. That is your future." Waller says, "Thank you, Miss Clay." She turns to leave. Lilith Clay says, "It won't change, you know. So many others have tried, and it never does." Waller says, "The others weren't me." We're going to cut to the car with Clock King and Chemo. Clock King's going to ask him why he didn't talk to her. And Chemo will say, "She seemed happy. Maybe she was able to move on her own way. I'd only leave her again. Why reopen old wounds? The last thing I ever wanted was to hurt her. And Clock King says, it was a good choice. What we do is dangerous. There's a chance you'll be dead before the month is out. Chemo says, it's funny. I've heard that before. He says, just what is it that we do? We're going to see Flatline lounging on a chair with her feet up. She's listening to music. Suddenly, Sportsmaster walks into the room. Flatline looks up and smiles. We're going to cut to the briefing room with the projector. You know the room. Flatline says, it's Sports Douche. I see Waller's letting anyone on this mission. And he's going to say, you're one to talk, Emo Emily. Then he's going to make a not safe for YouTube joke about cutting because she looks like an emo. Flatline's going to say, oh, good one. Really creative. I'll have to write that down so I don't forget it. Oh, shit, I must have misplaced my pen, she says after patting around herself. Next, we see Electrocutioner walk in and take a seat. He turns and looks at them and says, Flatline, is this the same wild goose chase as before? Flatline shrugs. Don't know. I haven't been told. He never tells us shit. Electrocutioner says, shocking. Flatline snorts a laugh. You and your puns. I'd swear you're the corniest man alive. Electrocutioner just shrugs. Clearly, you never talked to Rainbow Raider. Flatline says, I did say alive. Electrocutioner laughs out loud. Oh, that's bad. You know, sooner or later, it's going to be one of us that gets fried. Sportsmaster says, maybe one of you two. I don't plan on dying. This is my last gig, and I won't be a cliche. Well, the dead never do. I would know. I've asked. Chemo and Clock King walk into the room. They each take different seats far from each other. Sportsmaster and Flatline study Chemo. Sportsmaster whispers to Flatline, you seen him before? And she says, nah, he's new. Sportsmaster says, I hope he's not another cyborg. I've had enough of robots. Flatline says, I'm going to go find out. She starts to climb over the seats until she's sitting next to Chemo. She offers him a hand and says, yo, I'm Nakia, but you can call me Flatline. He says, I'm Matthew, but they've been calling me Chemo. What is this? Flatline says, oh, you're fresh off the boat, eh? This is the Suicide Squad, and we do things for Waller. Chemo says, like what? Flatline says, I fought a cult once. For Waller, that is. Chemo says, that's cool. And Flatline says, I know, right? She says, so what do you do? Chemo stops and thinks about it and says, I'm radioactive. And Flatline says, like Chernobyl? And Chemo says, I guess. She looks uncomfortable. Should I be this close to you? Chemo says, Waller says the suit keeps you safe from me. Flatline asks if it works, and he says, if it didn't, you would already be dead. Flatline says, not exactly a ringing endorsement, and Chemo says, what about you? What do you do? She looks at him, raises her eyebrows, and says, I see dead people. She laughs. It was good to meet you, Matthew. Hopefully you don't die. She climbs back over to her spot next to Sportsmaster. Suddenly, Waller enters the room with the hat in tow. He's a Japanese man, probably, 28, 30, and he's got a big top hat on. The hat takes a seat as Waller turns on the projector. She says, hello, everybody. She clicks a button, and security footage of a mysterious woman appears. It's the same woman who was wearing black and white we saw talking to the guard that got Rainbow Raider in trouble. She says, this is Grace Barlin, a marine biologist who specializes in research involving dolphins and other marine mammals. She was employed at Gotham Aquarium until it was shut down 7 years ago. She became a ghost until she appeared at Gallows to ruin our previous mission. We believe she is deeply connected with the organization we're calling the Society of Shadows. Waller clicks the button again, and a satellite photo of Gotham Aquarium appears. We have tracked her to the very same aquarium she used to do research with. It's abandoned and run down, but we suspect she's using it as some sort of headquarters. Your mission is to apprehend Miss Boleyn and interrogate her for any information she might have on the Society of Shadows. If you are successful and we capture the Society of Shadows alongside the stolen goods, I have arranged full pardons for each of you. Any questions? Electrocutioner raises his hands. Yes, Waller asks. Electrocutioner says, when you say pardons, you mean like a pardon? Waller says, yes, I did say a full pardon. Electrocutioner says, but like even for murder? Multiple murders. Waller says, that is what a full pardon means. Flatline raises her own hand. And all we have to do is catch the scientist and her friends? Waller says, that is correct. And any other questions? They are all silent. Waller says, then let's go. We're going to cut to the tarmac, where we're going to do our team-up shot of the squad. We're going to hear the song Boilermaker by Royal Blood play. I'm starting a trend here. I'm going to do this across all three movies. I'm going to use a Royal Blood song for every team-up shot. I think that band is awesome, and they literally write nothing but songs that work perfect as a team-up shot. We're going to see Electrocutioner pull out a cigar. He lights it with his electricity as they walk. Flatline walks next to him and blows a bubblegum bubble. Clock King checks his watches as he walks. The hat pulls his top hat off his head and pulls out a bottle of booze. He shakes it, then throws it, because it's empty. It shatters on the ground. As he pulls out another one, he pops the cork and starts to drink. Chemo stops and looks up at the sky. He smiles as he sees the sky for the first time in 2 years. The camera pans around, and we see it's an RV, not a helicopter, continuing the trend of them never getting in a helicopter again. Plotline says, "Oh, it's a road trip. Great." Sportsmaster says, "Beats the cow trucks." Flatline says, "That's a good point. It could always be worse." Sportsmaster says, "I miss the helicopters. Not subtle enough for Waller, I guess." Electrocutioner says, "You guys rode in helicopters?" Sportsmaster says, "Once or twice." Electrocutioner said, "Damn, I never got that. I'm shocked." Flatline points out that he already made that pun. Electrocutioner shrugs. "There are only so many electricity puns you can use." I wind up recycling. We're going to cut to the masked man from the casino. He's sitting in a room and watching a bunch of TVs with many different stations. On one, we can see security footage of the tarmac. The woman who was in the black and white dress walks in. "There you are. They've taken the bait." The masked man says, "There you are. They've taken the bait. They're heading to the aquarium, I'm sure. The breadcrumbs we've left should be enough." Grace says, "Then I'll be waiting." The masked man says, "What did the cult fiend have to say?" Grace says, "His cage is done. He's holding the shade in it now. It's the only thing containing him." The masked man says, "Good. The trap is set. Now we wait." We zoom into one of his TVs and see a strange man in a colorful duster sitting in a concrete room. He looks towards the camera and smiles. We're going to cut to the RV. We're going to hear the song "The Underdog" by Spoon playing as we zoom into the back of the RV. We'll see the hat laying on a bed in the back. You know how RVs have like a bed in the back, a little bedroom area. He's drinking another bottle, and then he throws it and pulls out another bottle and starts to drink again. He's clearly very intoxicated. The one thing on the wiki I mentioned for the hat is that he's a big alcoholic, so we're going to carry that over. And there's some other things in his backstory we'll get into later in the film, but for now, he is an alcoholic. The camera keeps moving forward until we see Flatline laying across one of the chairs. She's listening to music on her iPod. Chemo sits across from her and is staring out the window at all the scenery. Across the RV, we see Sportsmaster and Electrocutioner playing paper football on a table. Sportsmaster flicks the paper football perfectly into the goal. Electrocutioner says, "This isn't fair. You're too good." Sportsmaster just says, "Just practice more, and maybe one day you'll win around." Electrocutioner says, "I think I'm done with this game." Sportsmaster says, "Your loss." He stands up and we follow him as he sits next to Clock King, who's driving. "Talkman, how have you been? It's been a minute since we've done this song and dance together." Clock King says, "Oh, you know, the same as usual, leading men to their graves." Sportsmaster says, "Don't let it get to you. We know what we're doing. It's in the name." Clock King says, "We're old guard now. You must be close to working your sentence off." Sportsmaster says, "Only 5 years, and now she offers the pardon. How about you?" Clock King says, "I don't keep track." Sportsmaster looks at him funny. "You don't keep track of your own prison time?" He says, "I don't believe that." And Clock King says, "What's the point? I'm just killing time before the inevitable." Sportsmaster says, "What, you don't have kids or a loved one? Certainly you have something to look forward to." Clock King says, "I had a sister once. All I have to look forward to now is trying to kill the Batman. No doubt I'll fail and end up back here again. There's no point in keeping track of my time. It's running out, and that's all that matters." Sportsmaster says, "The Batman, huh? You're one of those revenge types. Wouldn't have guessed it of a guy like you." Clock King says, "We all have our demons. What keeps you coming back?" Sportsmaster says, "Greed. But I'm not coming back. I'm done with that life. I'm gonna be free, and freedom is not something I plan on losing again. I got a kid to think about." Clock King looks at him and laughs. "Someone had a kid with you?" Sportsmaster says, "You're telling me, man. I'm not the fatherly type, but the kid's got my eyes and my skills. It's hard not to care. She's got to be 14 now." Clock King says, "I raised my sister. I know the feeling." Sportsmaster says, "I never had siblings." And Clock King says, "Yeah, I can tell." Sportsmaster says, "Always right to the throat with you." Clock King says, "I'm efficient like that." We're going to do a little gag sequence where the RV pulls into a road stop. We'll see the Suicide Squad come out and stretch their legs. We see Chemo stop and look at the flowers on the ground. Flatline's going to notice and smile and says, "I guess you're a big flower guy, huh?" Chemo's going to say, "I haven't seen a flower in 2 years. My mother used to grow flowers like this in her yard. It's just nostalgic." Flatline says, "My mom wasn't too much of a gardener. She was too good at killing stuff to leave any plants alive." Chemo says, "I'm the same now. Without this suit, these flowers would wither." We're going to see Electrocutioner walk up to a vending machine. He funnels some electricity into it and several snacks fall out. He looks over at the ATM machine next to it and smiles. We're going to cut to the team getting back into the RV. We'll see Electrocutioner's money jammed into the pockets of his suit. Alright, we're going to cut to a cancer treatment facility. We're going to see Waller getting chemotherapy. She has no hair and a wig sticks next to her. She's reading a book of Arthurian legends, and we see she's turned to a page on the Philosopher's Stone. She shuts it as the doctor walks up. Doctor says that they're ready for her. We see her in a CAT scan machine. It hums and whirls as she lays inside of it. They pull her out, and she stands up. They tell her scan was successful, and she asks how they look. The doctor tells her that they won't know for a few days. I'm going to kind of breeze over this scene. We see the gang go to Gotham. They pull in, and they talk about the Batman for a while, and they each talk about how they could probably take him on. Waller informs them that they don't have to worry about the Batman, that she waited until the Justice League had an operation. And now we're going to see them walk into the aquarium. They approach the aquarium. It's a very large building surrounded by a chain link fence with private property signs. It's covered in graffiti. The Hat drunkenly sits up from his bed and asks if they're there. And then they team up. Electrocutioner says that he should stay with the car because electricity doesn't really agree with water, and an aquarium might not be the best place for him. Clock King tells him to stay here and be ready. Electrocutioner says, sure. We watch the squad unload and enter the aquarium. Then we see Electrocutioner smile and look behind the RV at a strip club. He pulls out some of the money from the ATM and heads over. The inside of the Gotham Aquarium is falling apart. A large model of a whale hangs from the ceiling. It's covered in mold and graffiti. The walls are fitted with aquariums with water that have gone green. Flatline says the place is a dump, and Chemo agrees. He says, I used to come here as a kid. What happened? Clock King says that they lost funding. Sportsmaster comments that Central City has a better aquarium, and that Gotham can suck it. The squad moves through the maze of exhibits until they come to a large underwater tunnel. You've seen these if you've ever been to an aquarium. The sign outside the tunnel says, Orca Whales, and someone has graffitied above them to say, beware of. So it says, beware the orca whales. They stop and nervously study the tunnel. Sportsmaster chuckles and moves into the tunnel. What's to be afraid of? Look at that water. There's nothing living in that. The rest of the team follow him. As they move, we see something swimming in the murky water. Chemo stops and turns to look into the water. He says, I think there's something out there. Sportsmaster says, I already told you there isn't. Chemo leans in and looks. Suddenly a black shape launches from the depth and smashes through the glass of the dome. It's Orca, the villain, as the actual Orca. She grabs Chemo and smashes through the other side of the glass tunnel, dragging him into the depths. The entire glass tube begins to flood and crack. The squad is in danger. Flatline, Clock King, and the Hat run in the way they came. Sportsmaster is cut off by the rushing water. He clicks his boots together, and this board pops out. I'll say it's like a built-in snowboard / surfboard in his boots. It's super goofy, and it's something right out of the comic books. So he's going to start riding the water like a wave, and he's able to quickly zoom to the other side of the aquarium before he's, drowned or anything. The others aren't as fast. Glass above them begins to shatter and starts to flood in with water. The Hat pulls his hat off. He reaches inside and pulls out a silver spear. He throws it down and it explodes. The water stops its movement and the glass stops breaking as his time has been frozen in a tiny bubble. The Hat says, that won't hold long. We have to run. They make it to the staircase just as the tunnel starts to completely flood with water. Inside the tank, we see Chemo getting slammed into the tank's floor by Orca. He punches her with his metal fists. Orca lets him go and vanishes into the murk. He tries to contact Waller. Waller, can you hear me? Do you see this thing? Let me open my suit. Waller doesn't reply. We hear only static. Suddenly, Orca reappears in the darkness and clashes into Chemo again. She drags him against the floor. Again, Chemo punches her fruitlessly. And then, suddenly, he's struck with an idea. He finds her eye and jabs it with a finger like you're supposed to do in a shark attack. Orca lets out a howl and leaves him again, vanishing into the darkness. Chemo turns and sees the aquarium wall. A metal ladder is bracketed there, and he starts to climb. We're going to cut back to the other team, and we'll hear the Hat say, what was that? I've had a bit to drink, but I'm pretty sure I saw a big fish. Clock King says, I saw it too. No doubt a creation of our marine biologist. Flatline's going to ask if they think Chemo is dead, and Clock King will say, could be. I can't seem to reach Waller. Flatline's going to say, what do we do? Clock King says, we find the target and capture her. If this creature is hers, then we'll make her stop it for us. See Sportsmaster climbing through a plaster coral reef. He's grumbling to himself about water and fish. He sees a door that says staff exit. He opens it and finds the top of the giant aquarium with the tunnel. As he walks in, we see a large amount of old and abandoned equipment. Suddenly, something emerges from the water. Sportsmaster pulls out his razor frisbee and is primed to attack before we see its Chemo climbing out of the tank. Chemo says, it's in the water. I got that. What is it? It looks like a big fish. Right as he says it, Orca leaps from the tank and lands between them. Sportsmaster says, oh, fuck. It's more of a whale. He throws his razor disc. It leaves a scratch on her shoulder. Orca turns to face him and snarls out words. Big mistake. Sportsmaster goes, oh, it talks. He turns and runs as Orca jumps back into the water. As he runs, Sportsmaster looks down into the murk. We see briefly that something is moving in the water. Chemo is running after him. What's the plan? I couldn't reach Waller to open the suit. No plan. We kick its ass. He turns and notices some rope on the wall. He pulls out his expanding javelin from the previous movie. Ahab style. Under the water, we follow Orca as she hunts him. We can see one of her eyes is bleeding from the gouging and she has trouble seeing. She loops up out of the water and trying to snag Sportsmaster, but misses just as he jumps away. He spins and sticks her with his javelin. She lets out a monstrous shriek and then vanishes into the tank again. We see rope being pulled in after her. Sportsmaster holds the end and is pulled in towards the water. He taps his shoes and releases the board again. He's pulled on top of the water like he's skiing by Orca. She tries to pull him into a big metal bar laying across the tank for feeding the fish. He jumps over it and skids on it, releasing sparks. Then suddenly, the rope starts to swim back towards him, and the line goes slack, and he falls into the water. She has figured out what he's doing. Shit, he says. He clicks away the board and starts to try to swim towards the walkway, but as he does, we see a black fin rise out of the water behind him. It gets closer and closer. We're doing an homage to the dock scene from Jaws, where he's barely making it to the dock. He barely makes it to land. Orca jumps onto the platform and smacks him. He tumbles to the ground a foot away with blood on his face. Orca says, "You speared me, and now you'll die." Orca moves towards him and opens her jaws. Sportsmaster says, "The thing is, I carry 2 spears." Suddenly, we see Chemo appear from behind her. He lifts a javelin into the air and stabs Orca all the way through. The creature lets out a pained cry and then yoinks the spear out. Blood begins to leak. The creature falls to its knees and begins to shrink. Soon it's just Grace Baleen. Chemo says, "And that's how you catch a white whale." And that's the end of the first act. They've captured Orca, and we've had a fun action sequence or two. We lost 2 squad members. We've lost, of course, Battering Ram and Rainbow Raider, both of which will be missed. Rest in peace. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go into the outro. I hope you all enjoyed.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Part 2 should be coming out sometime the next month, probably. I'm going to do a Deadlands before then, which I'm already writing right now, so it shouldn't take too long to finish. I have another video coming out between now and then, which is very, very different, and has already been filmed and is currently being edited. I think y'all might be surprised by that and find some enjoyment in it. So remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Comment below, tell me what you think, things you change, things you think are going to happen. Guess the ending, go ahead, and I'll be enjoying that. I'll try to reply to everyone, and thanks for watching, y'all. What is this, already? Wait, what was this? We lasted 3 seconds with no dog interruption. That's a new land speed record, people, and there's a dog interruption. Okay, are you done? I'm just gonna leave this in. This is just getting left in. Okay. Alright, sit. Okay, whatever. Hi, I am Bjorn and I do movies, and today we are doing the second act of the Suicide Squad 4. I've written the script, it is finished. This is going to be a long one, I suspect, although I haven't actually recorded me speaking out the script yet, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we're going to go right into it. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Let me know what you think, yada yada. We are going to open where we left off. We'll see Grace Baleen, aka Orca, slowly waking up and realizing she's bound to a chair. She struggles and tries to break free of the bindings. We hear Clock King. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I found your little jamming device, and my friend here has a fully operational suit again." He gestures to Chemo, who stands awkwardly in the corner. He says, "Chemo, tell her what would happen if we opened just the finger of your suit." Chemo says she would receive a fatal dose of radiation. It would kill her in 10 seconds. Maybe 30 if she were lucky. Or, I guess, unlucky. Grace says, "You think that scares me?" And Clock King says, "It should. I took a look at the kid's file. You should have seen the mess he made of a hospital. I didn't realize a body could turn to liquid so quickly." We see Chemo kind of grimace for a second. And then Grace asks, "What is it you want?" Clock King says, "That seems a good place to start. I want what you stole, and I want the names of your accomplices. Give them to me, and you will be free to go." Grace says no, and Clock King says, "Okay." The average person can withstand torture for around 4 minutes and 35 seconds without breaking. Just to point out, I couldn't find a statistic for this. Shockingly, there is no statistic that exists for this, so I just took a rough guess on how long I thought the average person could last, and I put it in here. This isn't a real number. The real number doesn't exist, unfortunately.
Also, I landed myself on an FBI watch list for Googling that. He says, but you seem exceptional. Normally I'd give you an hour, but I am no average torturer. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to start with your nails. I'm going to rip them up by the roots. And when I finish with them, we're going to cut off your ears. Then, I'm going to peel the skin off your fingers before I remove them completely. By then, you will have given me what I need to know. Clock King pulls up his sleeves and clicks a button on one of his watches. He starts a timer. I just set a 5-minute timer, and when it finishes, I'll start with your nails. I promise that I will break you. You should just save yourself the pain and tell me what I want to know. Gray says, I don't know what you're talking about. Clock King taps his watch. Time is ticking. The Shadow Society. Who are you? Gray says, I've never heard of them. Clock King says, well, we have you on CCTV. Bullshit won't work. I know you're lying to me. He clicks another button on his watch. I just changed your time to 2 minutes. Next time you lie to my face, I'm going to start with the nails. Suddenly an explosion rips through the side of the building. Chunks of rock shatter across the floor and dust fills the air. Clock King and Chemo are thrown to the floor. We're going to cut to the strip club. We'll see Electrocutioner getting a lap dance from a stripper. He throws money at a girl dancing. And the stripper asks him, did you really rob a bank? Electrocutioner says, of course, baby. Stripper says, that's so interesting. You're like really interesting. Electrocutioner says, it's my electric personality. Women can't resist me. He laughs to himself as though he said something really funny. Suddenly the explosion happens. He jumps up, spilling the girl to the floor. He says, oh fuck. And he starts to run towards the door to the aquarium. We're going to cut back to the aquarium. We see Chemo look up from the floor. A woman is helping Grace out of the now open wall. Armed men rush through the hole. Chemo slowly starts to get to his feet and the men start to shoot him. The bullets tink harmlessly against his suit. He goes to his comm. Waller, open my finger. Waller says, you have approval, through his earpiece. We'll see the finger of his suit pops open with a hiss. He points it towards the men shooting at him. Boils begin to appear on their skin and blood seeps from their eyes. They fall to the ground within seconds. The finger of the suit closes itself automatically. Clock King is stirring. Blood runs from a wound on his head. Flatline and Sportsmaster run into the room. Clock King says, get her back. Chemo says, okay. He grabs Flatline and Sportsmaster before jumping through the hole. He lands 2 stories below. The concrete cracks where he lands. We see the woman is getting into a car. It starts to drive off. More armed men fill the lot. They fire on the squad as the car drives off. Flatline and Sportsmaster use Chemo as cover. Sportsmaster peeks around him and throws one of his razor frisbees. You know, these are the things we've seen him use a couple times. He takes the top of a man's head off, and then the other man has to reload. Flatline makes a run for him. She kicks him in the balls and then catches him by the neck as he falls. She rips out his jugular. Pretty brutal kill. Flatline says, not the usual necking I give men, but I guess that works. Another man opens fire at her from behind a tree. Flatline uses the dead man's body as a shield. Bullets rip through it. One of them grazes her arm and we see blood start to drip from it. Another man jumps out of a car and is about to open fire on her from her flank when Chemo appears. He blocks the bullets with his body, then kills the man with a blast of radiation. Sportsmaster throws a spear, pinning the last soldier to a tree. He's literally stuck there trying to escape as he's pinned into the tree. He falls limp and dies, still pinned to the tree. Sportsmaster says, holy shit, I totally Michael Myered that guy. I've never done that before. He walks over and pulls his spear free, causing the body to fall to the ground. We see Chemo bend over and pull the dead body off Flatline. She looks scared. Chemo offers her a hand. You okay? He asks. And she says, just grazed my arm. You saved me. I owe you. She takes his hand and stands. Chemo looks towards the car that's now gone. He says, the white whale escaped after all. Sportsmaster gives him a sinister smile. Not quite. We may have given the whale a bit of a surprise. We're going to see Clock King limp out into the courtyard, followed quickly by Electrocutioner, who is out of breath. Clock King's going to say, I put a tracker under her skin. She's going to take us right to her team. Flatline looks around. Where's the guy with the hat? We're going to cut to the hat. He's sleeping next to a statue of a dolphin inside the aquarium. An empty bottle of booze is in his arms. We see Sportsmaster kick him. Wake up, asshole! The hat drunkenly opens his eyes. Where am I? He asks. Flatline says, he's totally shit-faced. Electrocutioner asks where he even got alcohol. That they've been in the RV this whole time. There's no way he could have gotten any. Clock King says it doesn't matter and tells Chemo to pick him up. Chemo picks him up and starts to carry him off. We're going to cut to Belle Reeve. We see Waller standing in front of the mission control screen. She says, what a mess. Tell me that tracker works. Her assistant says, we've got signal. It's moving down the highway headed towards the warehouse district. Waller says, you hear that, Task Force X? You're going to the warehouse district. Sportsmaster says, aye, aye, Captain. And then we see the squad heading towards the RV. They all begin to board one by one. Just as the Electrocutioner is about to board, Clock King pulls him away by his vest and slams him into the side of the RV. Electrocutioner says, what the fuck? Clock King says, did you think I didn't see the glitter on your chest? If you want to go to a strip club, do it on your own time. Electrocutioner says, I didn't think anything was going to happen. Clock King says, well, it did. All because you were fucking around on guard. One more time, and I'll have Waller blow up your bomb. Electrocutioner says, you wouldn't. And Clock King says, call my bluff. See if I won't. Electrocutioner shakes his head. I believe you. Clock King says, good. Get in the RV. We're headed out. They both climb up into the RV. As it starts to drive away, we're going to see the camera pan over to Chemo and Flatline, who are in the booth with the table, same one described in the last episode. Flatline is nodding her head along to some music, and Chemo notices. He asks her what she's always listening to, and Flatline laughs. She says, Japanese city pop. Again, this is the thing I mentioned in the last movie that her character likes, specifically to replace the comic book's cringier and less interesting version of manga. Chemo says, I can't say I've heard of that. And Flatline says, it was popular in Japan in the 80s. When my dad grew up there, it was all the rage. So when he came to America, he brought all of his records. The music reminds me of him. I owe him a lot for giving me my excellent music taste. She studies Chemo for a second. Look, you seem like a nice guy and you saved my life. Can I tell you a secret? And Chemo says, if you're worried about me snitching, I won't tell anyone. Flatline says, good. If you do, I'll kill you. Radioactivity or not. She takes a deep breath and then says, when I was a little girl, my dad died. For most, it would be horrible, but I was still able to talk to him, with my powers and all. He told me the other side wasn't so bad, that it was actually nice. I believed that my whole life. Until my last mission. I took an RPG to the chest, filled my whole body with shrapnel, and I nearly bled out on the floor. I flatlined in the ambulance. The irony of it isn't lost on me, she says. I was dead for about 2.5 minutes before they were able to resuscitate me. And here's the thing, I remember all of it. And do you know what the other side was like? Chemo says, I don't. And Flatline says, it's all blackness. I saw nothing. No heaven or hell, no afterlife. Everything I've ever believed is a lie. Oh, I talked to the dead. But maybe they're only there because of me, because of my powers. Death didn't really scare me before, you know? I had something after, something more, but now it terrifies me. What if it really is nothing at all? What if blackness is all there is after this? Chemo says, we're all afraid to die. I know I was. When I got my diagnosis, I looked for a way to save myself. As someone who's lived through what you are, sometimes it's better to just accept your life as it is. Live whatever time you have left and try to be happy. Don't worry about what comes afterwards. Flatline says, I just don't know. I always thought there was something more. Maybe even a point to life. Chemo shrugs and says, who knows? You weren't really dead after all. Maybe when you die for real, there's something. Flatline smiles slightly. Maybe so. She thanks him for hearing him out and then apologizes for dumping on him. And then says she owes him double. Chemo says, talking to you is payment enough. It's nice to actually talk to someone. I've been alone for a long time in my cell. All this is actually kind of fun. Although we are killing people. Flatline says, I'm so used to everyone here being a killer. It's got to be surreal to be normal among all of us. Chemo says, I don't know. You guys seem normal. Except for maybe Clock King. He's something else. Oh, and the drunk guy. I keep forgetting he's here. We're going to pan over and see the hat snoring asleep on the couch. He has his hat over his head. Flatline kind of looks over him awkwardly. He really is a mess. Although he did freeze time earlier. Chemo says, what? She says, yeah, dude totally froze time. Chemo kind of says wonderingly, so that's what he does. You know, that could have actually been helpful. And then he notices that she's still listening to her song, and he says, you mind if I listen? I'd be curious to hear what this music sounds like. Flatline says sure, and pops the headphones off her ears. She puts them over Chemo's helmet, and then turns up the volume so he can hear it through the suit. And we hear the song Goodbye Boogie Dance by Anri, another Japanese city pop song. Which I'd like to point out here for a second. I'm not actually even that big of a fan of this genre. I came up with this gimmick because I'd heard of this sort of Plastic Love album got really popular, and because of that, this whole genre was really popular. And I thought, you know, that's actually something a teen would have that's actually kind of a niche interest instead of something that everyone sort of universally likes, like manga. So since then, I've had to listen to a lot of this music, and a lot of it's hit or miss, but I actually kind of like this song, so I chose it because it fit the scene. But that's just to explain that you guys don't know how much Japanese city pop I've listened to for this. It's actually kind of pathetic. And I just want someone else to, to acknowledge the amount of effort I took into getting this right. Especially for something as stupid as a YouTube movie. So there you go. The camera pans up and we see the RV moving down the highway as the song continues to play. We're going to cut to Belle Reve. We see Waller studies a satellite image of a warehouse. Guards move around its surface. This is it, she says. They have guards all around it. Her assistant says, I don't see a stealth option working here. I say guns blazing. Waller says, let Clock King handle it. He's ex-military and good at what he does. Just relay the information to him. Suddenly her phone begins to ring. She pulls it out of her pocket and looks at the name. It says Dr. Harold. I just needed a doctor name and Harold seemed good enough. Waller says, I have to take this. Hold down the operation. She steps away and picks up the call. The doctor says, hello, is this Miss Amanda Waller? And Waller replies, it is. And the doctor says, oh, excellent. I've got some very good news for you, Miss Waller. And she asks, what's that? Well, normally we wait for your appointments for these sorts of things, but this information I thought you'd want to know. It says, we got your scans back, and it looks like you're in full remission. We're seeing shrinkage in all the major tumors. It seems your operation was a success. Waller says, you're serious. The doctor says, I am. Now, this does not mean you're completely out of the woods. While this is a very good sign, your cancer could still come back. This is a fight you will continue to fight for some time. Waller says that she understands and thanks him. He says, we have the appointment scheduled for next Tuesday. I can go over your results with more detail then. You have a good day, Miss Waller, and congratulations. The phone clicks away and Waller lets it fall to her side, limply. We can see that there are tears running in her eyes. She wipes them away. She turns and heads down the hall away from the control center. We're going to cut to the warehouse district. We see Clock King looking through a pair of binoculars. He hands them to Sportsmaster, who's laying next to him on an adjacent roof. Clock King says, I count 6 of them on the outside. We'll do it stealthy. I don't want to alarm them. Give them time to escape. Sportsmaster says, sounds like a good plan. How do you plan on doing it? Clock King says, I can take out 3 or 4 with my rifle. He pats the rifle bag on his back. I suggest you and Flatline take who's left. You two are the only ones I trust the stealth mission. Sportsmaster says, I can do it, and I trust Flatline enough. He stands up. Flatline, you're with me. Everyone else stays here and waits. He climbs down the ladder from the roof, and we see Clock King remain up there. He pulls out a sniper rifle from his bag and slowly screws on a suppressor. He folds open the balancing legs and looks down the sights. Through the crosshairs, we see Sportsmaster and Flatline approaching the warehouse, hiding behind boxes and walls while men turn the corner. We get a little extended sequence of them sneaking up on guards without triggering anyone. Shot entirely through Clock King's gun sights. I think this whole action scene will be through his gun sights. It's kind of a neat idea I came up with, and I think it would be a fun way to shoot an action set piece. A guard stands and watches the path Sportsmaster and Flatline have to take intently. We see Clock King move his crosshairs over his head and fire. He dies in an instant and blood splatters along the back of the wall. We see Clock King pull back the bolt and reload the gun. He quickly fires and kills another guard near to the other guard. We can see Flatline move up through his crosshairs. As he stares through the scope, he starts to reload the gun again. We can see Flatline climb up the side of a fire escape. She reaches a guard on the roof and pulls him over the edge, causing him to fall to his death. A guard comes out and is about to fire on her when Clock King puts a bullet in his head. Flatline turns to look at the guard who just died, then turns and waves to Clock King. She moves forward. Clock King scoots the scope to the side just a bit, in time to see Sportsmaster behead a guard with a frisbee. He holds up 2 fingers and gives Clock King a thumbs up. Clock King pivots his gun sight back and we see another dead guard, meaning that Sportsmaster has killed 2. Clock King folds up his gun and puts it back into its bag. He throws it over his shoulder and climbs down to the rest of the squad. All 6 guards are now dead. We see Clock King meet up with Sportsmaster Flatline, and the rest of the squad is put back together once again. Clock King says, 3 teams. Sportsmaster and Flatline. Chemo in the hat. I'll take Electrocutioner. We do this as quietly as we can. If you can, take a hostage, preferably one of the main members. You've seen their images. If you find the stolen goods, the priority is extraction. If you need backup, don't hesitate to call for support from one of the other teams. Flatline says, got it. Chemo kind of awkwardly looks towards the hat and says, do I have to take him? The hat is currently drunkenly leaning against him. Clock King sighs and says, it's not ideal. The way I see it, you're the hardest to kill. Just try not to let him die. I just wish I knew how he kept getting alcohol. The Electrocutioner says, yeah, I'd like to know his trick too. Could use a good drink. Clock King says, alright, let's go Task Force X. He claps his hands. We see them split into various doors. We're going to follow Flatline and Sportsmaster if they begin to navigate through the halls. Flatline leans over to him and says, "Come on, cough it up." Sportsmaster asks her what, and Flatline says, "The newest piece from the next up-and-coming artist." Sportsmaster goes, "Oh," and chuckles a little bit. He reaches into his pocket and removes a piece of white paper. He hands it to Flatline, who unfolds it. It's a child's drawing made with crayons. Flatline says, "Oh wow, that's amazing. Is it an elephant?" And Sportsmaster says, "The note said unicorn." Flatline says, "Oh well, not everyone can be an artist. Maybe she'll be good at sports." Sportsmaster says, "I hope not. With any luck, the kid turns out nothing like me." Flatline says, "You don't mean that." The Sportsmaster says, "I do. I'm a fuck up. My dad's the reason why. I don't want to be that for her." Suddenly, two guards turn the corner. They beat them up using their kung fu and sports skills, respectively. Flatline says, "You're being too hard on yourself. You may have been a fuck up once, but you can change. Just be better." Sportsmaster says, "That's the idea. Being a role model is just fucking hard." We're going to see Chemo in the hat. They move through the halls. They come to a door and check inside the room. It's filled with electronics and construction equipment. Lots of it. Chemo says, "What are they making here?" He turns back to the hat. He has another bottle of alcohol in his hand and is swaying back and forth, barely conscious. Chemo asks, "Where did you even get that?" He tries to take the bottle from the hat, who fights him for it. Chemo is able to pull it away, and the hat falls to the ground and leans against a wall. "That was mine," he says drunkenly. Chemo says, "I'm cutting you off. No more alcohol. Aren't you worried about dying or something? There's bad guys here." The hat says, "They couldn't kill me. I have the hat. Let me drink more." He tries to reach his hand out for the bottle. Chemo says, "No." Suddenly, their shadows begin to change directions and pivot on their own. Chemo kind of notices and is really uncomfortable. Then shadows begin to climb up the hat's legs and then his arms. Quickly, he's covered entirely in shadows, and then he floats down into the ground as though it's made of water. He vanishes. Chemo says, "Fuck." He tries to grab the hat, but it's too late. Chemo looks down to find that the shadows are climbing over him too. They completely cover him, then the screen goes black. We're gonna see Chemo merge from the darkness into sudden dim light. He lands on the concrete. The hat appears next to him and hits the concrete hard. He curls and pukes before passing out. Chemo carefully pulls himself to his feet. He checks Hat's pulse. He's alive, just drunk enough to sleep. The room is dimly lit. In the faint light, he can see a person. We hear a woman's voice. "Matthew?" A woman climbs into the light, and we can see it's Chemo's mother. Boils cover her face, and blood runs from her eyes and nose. Chemo says, "Mom!" And his mother says, "You did this to me. It hurts so much. You let us die in agony." A voice from the darkness cuts off and says, "Enough!" His mother's shape melts away, and another shape moves in the darkness. This time it's a man. He steps into the light and reveals Shade the Changing Man. He wears his classic colorful duster and looks more than a little malnourished and pale. Shade says, "She's not real. I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't a threat." Chemo asks, "What was that?" And Shade says, "What scares you most? The duster does it on its own. I have no control over it. I'm still trying to learn to use its power." And Chemo says, "Who are you?" And Shade says, "I am Shade, and you don't look like one of her men." Chemo says, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm a member of the Suicide Squad. We came to take down something called the Shadow Society." Shade says, "Then you fell for the trap." We're going to cut to the upper warehouse. We see Flatline moving through a hall with Sportsmaster. Two more men turn the corner, and Flatline starts beating them up with her martial arts. She throws one guy back to Sportsmaster, who catches him on the end of a spear, killing him. Sportsmaster says, "This isn't right." Flatline says, "What do you mean?" Sportsmaster says, "I mean, this is too easy. These guys were legit before. They robbed a bank without us knowing. They kicked our ass at the Aquarium. They had metahumans. Now we find their base and we're able to move through it this easily. I don't like it." But Flatline says, "Now that you say it, it is odd." She taps her earpiece. "Clock King, Electrocutioner, you guys good?" We hear Clock King radio in. "Yeah, we're good. Almost no resistance." Flatline says, "Yeah, we noticed. We think something isn't right. What about you, Chemo? You got that drunk bastard handled?" No response comes in. "Chemo, you there?" No response again. She says, "I think we're being played." We hear Nightshade behind her. "Aren't you clever?" Suddenly, the shadows start to cling around Sportsmaster. He's pulled down into them as though he's just jumped into the ocean. Flatline wheels around in time to see him vanish. She says, "What the fuck?" She pulls out a rope knife, which for those who have not seen one of these before, they have one in Shang-Chi, but it's just a knife on the end of a rope. And you can spin it and direct it with your arms and feet to, like, impale people at range. Nightshade says, "That's pointless." Flatline turns around and finds Nightshade standing where she wasn't before. She quickly throws her knife rope and it passes right through Nightshade as though she wasn't even there. What are you? And Nightshade says, not your enemy. But you aren't ready to understand that yet. Shadows begin to cling to Flatline and she's drugged down. She appears inside the room where she finds Sportsmaster and Chemo. She says, oh, you guys are okay. Chemo says, yeah, some lady attacked me and the drunk guy. We found ourselves down here with him. He gestures to Shade, who looks up. That would be Nightshade. One of her followers laid this little trap for you. Clock King says... Suddenly, Clock King and Electrocutioner appear in the room. They look just as confused for a second, then see the rest of the squad. Clock King asks, what is all this? Sportsmaster says, a trap apparently. This guy's about to tell us. Clock King asks, and who is he? And Shade replies, I am Shade, from the Dimension Meta. Chemo says, wait, did you just say Dimension? Shade says, yes, I am not from your world, and neither is Nightshade. Chemo says, holy shit. And Flatline says, how did you get here? Shade says, recently something happened to weaken the distance between your multiverse and others. I could not say why, but I was able to follow Nightshade here when she crossed over, in order to stop her. The Clock King asks, what is this Nightshade going to do? And Shade replies, destroy, as she always does. She's starting with this prison of yours, the grand distraction she calls it. There is always one in her plans. Sportsmaster says, I don't like that. We have to get out of here. Shade says, it's sealed tight. I tried for 3 weeks to escape. The room is lined with metahuman dampeners. Only my duster works, and it's of little use here. Electrocutioner says, my suit isn't metahuman. He flares up electricity and drops a welding mask. He tries to cut through the concrete and fails. He says, this is tough shit. Suddenly, the TV in the room turns on. An image flickers into it, and we can see Calculator from the previous movie. He looks into the room on the camera and says, can you hear me? Is this thing working? Flatline says, I know this asshole. He was the one who worked for the cult. Calculator says, I see you can hear me. The Suicide Squad, so we meet again. I see your members are very different. Did you lose a few? He laughs manically. Clock King asks him what he wants. Calculator says, I want nothing from you. It is Nightshade who has taken an interest. She wishes for me to apologize for your containment. She also wishes for you to know that your servitude is at an end. She's going to handle your handler. I do believe she's going to your home. Sportsmaster says, Belle Reeve, she's going after Waller. The Calculator says, you didn't hear it from me. It doesn't matter now. There's nothing you can do to escape from that cell. I designed it myself. I'll leave you to your thoughts. The TV flips off. Flatline says, what the hell is he doing here? I didn't think he was involved. Clock King says, it doesn't matter. We have to get out of here. Sportsmaster asks, why? Let them go after Waller. No skin off my back if that bitch dies. Clock King says, if they kill Waller, they'll have access to our bombs. They'll control us if they don't just blow us up. Chemo says, bombs? What bombs? And Flatline says, the bomb in your neck. We all have them. Clock King says, he doesn't. Waller can control his suit remotely. There was no need for him to have one, not to mention he's no killer. Chemo says, she put bombs in your neck. And Sportsmaster says, to control us. Electrocutioner says, nah, to kill us if we disagree with her. I've seen her do it. She's always been one for shock and awe. Flatline kind of snorts. That's terrible. Clock King says, it doesn't matter. We have to get to Belle Reeve or we're fucked. Shade says, that is a great idea and all, but I told you there is no way out. Clock King says, we're going to have to think of something. We're going to cut to Belle Reeve. We see Waller moving past cells. Inmates call out to her as she walks by, jeering her. She ignores them and heads straight for Lilith Clay's cell. She scans her keycard and enters the cell. We see Lilith in the corner. Miss Waller? Waller says, tell me how I die. Lilith says, so soon? Give me your hand. Waller offers it and Lilith takes it. You die in a pool of your own blood. It won't be long now. I smell death upon you. Almost as soon as she finishes the words, we hear a voice from behind Waller. I've been looking for you. Waller turns around and we see a man wearing a mask. He's just finished emerging from the shadows. It's the same man who was at the casino, a member of the Shadow Society. Waller says, how did you get in here? And the mystery man says, I was let in. He takes his mask off. He's a handsome man with blonde hair. A scar runs down the side of his cheek. Waller looks at him with confusion. Cluemaster, you're dead. I watched you die. And he says, oh, I was quite dead, Waller. Then I met a friend. I've laid every clue you followed. I sent you down the rabbit hole. And when I heard you were dying, oh, I was so happy. I gave you hope for a cure, one I knew you'd never have. The perfect bait.
And now, for the grand finale, I'm going to ruin your legacy. I'm going to let every single inmate out of this prison. Waller says, is this all revenge then? How quaint. And Cluemaster says, oh no, all this is just a distraction. He pulls a knife from his belt. This is revenge. He tries to stab her. Waller thrusts an arm up. The knife sticks into her arm and she screams. He pulls it free and then stabs her in the chest. She tries to fight him off, but he stabs her again and again. She falls to the ground with blood flowing from her body. We see her fall into the exact position we saw in the vision of the future. Lilith Clay stands up from her spot and watches as Waller dies. And then she spits on her. She says, it's even more satisfying in reality. She looks up at Cluemaster. I could have warned her, you know. I saw exactly how it would happen. But you didn't. But I didn't, Lilith says. I think that deserves a reward. Let me out of here. Cluemaster says, you weren't listening. That was always the plan. As I said, this is supposed to be the distraction. Though I may have undersold the truth to Waller, just to make it a bit personal. It's not just Del Reeve we're hitting. We're going to cut to Arkham Asylum. We see two guards sipping coffee and watching cams in the security control room. We see Gentleman Ghost slip through the walls using his intangibility. He reaches the control panel and then kills two guards with the cane sword. He begins to operate the controls. He opens every single cell door. And we're going to get a couple cameos. Presumably I would have a budget so we could, get some cameos. Also, presumably we would have seen a couple of these villains already. So we see like maybe the Joker or Dr. Freeze escaping from Arkham, classic sequence. You get the idea. Then we're going to cut to Iron Heights, another DC prison. We see Orca appear from the shadows inside the control room. She crushes the head of the guards and opens the cells. We see more prisoners escape. Then we're going to see a prison in Canada. There was not a DC prison in Canada that I could find the name of. It just doesn't exist as far as I can tell. So I'm just making one up. I'm just going to call it Unnamed Canadian Prison. We'll see inmates eating in a mess hall. Suddenly the wall explodes. We see Plastique standing amongst the rebel with guards firing at her. She makes them explode with her powers. She yells, "Death to Quebec," as loud as she can. The inmates cheer and start to escape from the prison. And then we're going to cut to Belle Reeve. We see Lilith and Cluemaster walking together. So this is everywhere, she asks. And Cluemaster says, we're going to hit every major prison housing metahumans. She asks why. And Cluemaster says, to distract the heroes. And Lilith asks, from what? And Cluemaster says, everything. We want to tear it all down. He enters the control room and shoots Waller's assistant as soon as he enters the room. He turns and finds Nightshade studying Lilith. She asks, did you bring home a new stray? Cluemaster says, she helped us kill Waller, and she's interested in our cause. Lilith says, I want to tear it all down. Like he told me you do. Nightshade says, she'll fit right in. I love surprises for each of our prisoners, just like we planned. We're going to cut into the different cells, and we see bags left in their cells. We watch as a man picks up a rapier. He gives it a couple swings. Another inmate opens up a bag and finds it full of pennies. He giggles in delight. Lastly, we see a man sitting on the bed of his cell. He has no shirt on, and we can see a tattoo of a Grim Reaper across his entire back. He stands up from the bed, and we can see that scars cover his body. He opens his bag and finds a set of steel scythes. He laughs a bit. He says, this is fun. Suddenly, his cell clicks open. He picks up his scythes and walks out. Every other cell door is open, and all the criminals are walking out, each armed with their own unique weapons. I'll get more into cameos later, but you can just kind of imagine, like, who do you think in your head candies in Belle Reeve? You'll see them escaping, and maybe in the next part we're going to get some fun set pieces with some of these guys. We're going to cut to the prison at the bottom of the warehouse. We see Chemo trying to punch a hole through a concrete wall with his suit. It's not working. Chemo says, this is useless. Sportsmaster says, well, we tried everything else. I guess we are just stuck. We hear snoring pick up from the Hat as he sleeps on the floor. Flatline walks over to him, kicks him again, and says, wake up, asshole. He opens his eyes and lets out a groan before pinching the top of his nose. What is it this time? The Hat asks. Sportsmaster says, we're stuck and need to get to Belle Reeve with some haste. All you're doing is sitting here and snoring. Got any wise ideas, Hat boy? The Hat says, we're stuck? Flatline says, this guy is useless. The Hat says, I don't exactly know what's going on, but I can get us out. Just get me the hat. He gestures for his hat awkwardly. Chemo picks it up and brings it over. We see the Hat reach in and pull out a Pedialyte, which is a drink that helps with hangovers, by the way, for those who don't know. He drinks the bottle. Oh, that's the ticket. He stands up and sways a little bit, but he's sobering up. Clocking says, you said you can get us out. How? The Hat lifts up his hat. With this, Sportsmaster says, "Ah, so the drunk asshole thinks it's funny to fuck with everybody now." The Hat makes a snort at him, then twirls his hat so that it lands upright in the center of the room. It begins to grow in size until it's huge, filling almost the entire room. The squad is sort of forced back as it takes up space. And then the hat snaps again, and a door forms on the side of the hat. He opens it up. "Who's the asshole now, ass master? Why don't you go throw a football?" Sportsmaster says, "Maybe I will." Clucking says, "How is a big hat going to help us get to Belle Reve?" The Hat sort of flaps his arm away as though it's a stupid thought. "It's not, but what I have stored in here just might." He opens the door to the Hat again and walks inside. They all just stare for a moment. After a bit, he peeks his head back out. "You're supposed to follow me." They all just sort of look at each other. Then Sportsmaster shrugs. "The hell with it. I've seen weirder shit." He walks into the Hat, and the others follow behind him. We follow Chemo as he climbs inside. As soon as he enters the doors, we see a gigantic chamber. I'm talking huge, like several miles wide, like a whole outdoor area. Very tall, much taller than the actual Hat we saw outside. Because, as I mentioned before, the Hat's power is that he has a pocket dimension inside his hat. And for our next set piece, the squad is going to go into said pocket dimension. It seems to go on forever. Bookshelves and strange objects float in in the air, and they're moving in all different directions. Trees grow all over the place in random patches. There are birds flying around outside and deer frolicking through the piles of random crap. Just random junk is just spread everywhere in big piles. Sort of picture something like the Room of Requirements in Harry Potter, but more vast and more outside, and with like random trees, as if like someone threw seeds in here forever ago and they've grown just randomly. Sportsmaster says, "Never mind. This might be the weirdest shit I've ever seen." Flatline says, "How is this even possible?" The Hat turns and gives a bow. "Welcome to the Hat. It's a pocket dimension. Don't touch anything. I don't know everything that's in here. Some of it might kill you or the entire country. I couldn't say." Chemo says, "You're kidding, right?" The Hat says, "I'm too hungover to joke. I found a nuclear weapon in here once, somewhere in the west quadrant. I don't know. Just don't touch anything." Flatline said, "You had a nuclear bomb with us the whole time?" The Hat says, "Inside the hat, yes." Shade says, "This is some powerful magic. Old magic. Even in my world, something like this would be unheard of." Clucking says, "And this can get us to Belle Reve." Yeah, I got a thing," the Hat says. "It's just a bit away. We'll have to hike." We're going to see them start down a path cut through the junk. Paved street, literally walking through all this random junk. We're going to hear the song Razzmatazz by I Don't Know But How, But They Found Me play. They're going to walk for a while, hike for a bit. We'll listen to the song. And then we're going to see Clock King notice a mirror just on the side of the road. In his reflection for only a moment, he sees a young woman. He stops in his tracks and studies the mirror again. The young woman stands there and beckons him with a finger. Clock King says, "Samantha?" He reaches out and touches the mirror. And then we're going to immediately cut to a VA clinic. For those who don't know, this is Veteran Affairs. So if a military soldier in the U.S. gets hurt or needs medical assistance, they can go to the VA and get a checkup or get help with payments and stuff. So he's talking to a policy expert at the VA, which is the Veterans Association Hospitals. We're going to see Talkman, who I'm going to call Clock King from now on, because this is before he's Clock King. He says, "Please, you have to understand. I have someone depending on me. I can't die. She's not right in the head. She's slow, and she can't go on without me." The assistant woman, the VA worker, says, "As I said, sir, we don't cover the sort of treatment you need. I know it's not the best option, but there are homes available for people such as your loved ones in the event that you do pass away." Clock King says, "Please, I've served my country. I fought on the front lines. I deserve this treatment. My sister needs me. I can't leave her in a home. She's sensitive around other people." And the woman says, "I'm sorry, sir. There's literally nothing we can do. We don't cover the sort of treatment you want. I won't lie to you like the other doctors will. I've seen the numbers. Frankly, sir, it is a very low success rate and is extremely taxing on your body. I would recommend you just use the time you have left with your family." And this parallels Waller and Chemo. I made the very deliberate choice because Clock King's backstory is similar to Chemo's and Waller's sort of predicament currently. So it runs as sort of a theme, people dealing with their impending deaths in different ways. We're going to cut to Clock King's house. Clocks line the walls and sit on tables. We see a photograph of him in Afghanistan with some men, and we see medals framed in a box on the wall. We see Talkman repairing a watch, the career he's taken up after leaving the military. We see his younger sister watching a movie on the couch. He looks up from his work and studies her solemnly. He says, "What are you watching?" She says, "I don't know, just some movie on the television." And he asks her what it's about. She says, "Some real nasty bank robbers are shooting cops. The Batman should come and stop them." He looks at the movie she's watching as someone robs a bank. Talkman's eyes grow wide as he's struck with inspiration. We're going to cut to the Gotham National Bank. We see Clock King milling about the bank. He's watching a security guard. He says, come on," under his breath. He checks his watch. We can see him counting the seconds in his head. The guard turns and goes into the back. Talkman smiles, then goes up to the teller. It's a young woman. She says, "Hi, how can I help you?" And Talkman says, "I've got a gun. I want you to fill this bag with as much cash as you can." He hands her a bag. He starts his watch timer. The woman at the register hesitates. Talkman says, "I don't have time for you to be indecisive. If you don't start now, I'm going to shoot somebody." We can see that he's shaking with nervousness. She nods her head and starts to stuff the bag with cash. We see Clock King stare at his watch. After a minute, he says, "Stop. Whatever you have there is fine." She looks confused for a second. "Come on, hand it over. And don't click that panic button underneath the table or you will regret it." He holds up a briefcase for her to see, and then she hands him the bag. She looks scared. Talkman carefully sets the briefcase on the ground. He says, "Inside this briefcase there is an explosive bomb." Talkman holds up the remote control. "This is the detonator. I'm going to walk out of this bank with the money. I have a friend watching the bank. If anyone flees, I'll detonate the bomb. If the police are called, I'll detonate it. Do you understand?" She nods her head slowly. Talkman says, "Good, then we don't have a problem." He tips his hat and leaves. We're going to cut to him running through the streets of Gotham. He ducks into an alley and looks at the bag. It's filled with cash. He lets out a joyful laugh. He zips up the bag and turns to leave, finding the Batman. He stands cloaked in the midday shadow of the building. He says, "Robbing a bank. A bit Wild West, don't you think?" Talkman asks how he found him, and Batman says, "The bank teller called your bluff. She checked your so-called bomb and found an empty briefcase." Talkman says, No, I need this money. I served my time. I'm dying and I need it." The Batman says, "I'm afraid I can't let you keep it, William Talkman. You were military once. Come willingly and they will be lenient with your sentencing. I'll see to it." Talkman says, "Any sentence they give me is a death penalty. I won't let you take me." They fight. Clock King is able to predict many of Batman's moves. Using his perfect timing, he's able to predict when Batman will punch and dodge and then hit him back. But even as good as he is, Clock King is no match for the Cape Crusader, and Batman lays him out. We see Batman pick up the cash and tie Clock King up. And we're going to cut to Clock King and Belle Reve now. He watches the clock fixed on the wall outside his cell. The seconds tick by, and all he does is watch. Someone approaches his cell. It's a prison guard. He says, "You're William Talkman, correct?" Clock King says, "I am." And the guard says, "I've got bad news, I'm afraid. Your sister's dead. We're going to be letting you out for a funeral visitation. I'm sorry for your loss." We cut to the funeral hall. The casket sits on a table. Clock King sits in front of it. There's no one else in the entire room, and he begins to weep. He says, "I'm sorry. I should have been there. But I swear to you, with what little life I have left, I'll make them pay. They will know what it's like for their time to run out." And then lastly, we're going to cut a little bit into the future. Clock King has some facial hair now, and he's talking to a doctor. The doctor points to an x-ray of his lungs, and he says, "Our new findings showed us that you were likely misdiagnosed. Congratulations, Mr. Talkman. You're not dying. You were never sick at all. Actually, I'd say you're quite healthy." Clock King begins to laugh. It grows louder and louder until he's crying, and then the whole sequence starts again, but faster this time, sped up almost as in fast motion, again and again. Each time we see Clock King losing just a bit of himself, until finally the camera spins around and Clock King stumbles out of the mirror. I really wanted to fit Clock King's backstory into, and I had this other segment where a character touches a magic mirror inside the hat, and I just combined them into one to do this Clock King backstory. His backstory is, like, as I mentioned in my intro video, the most tragic thing of all time. This guy this guy gets misdiagnosed with a disease while taking care of his special needs sister, and then decides to rob a bank so that he can afford to keep her housed or afford the treatment to keep himself alive so she doesn't have to, go to a home. He fails, she's sent to a home, and she dies because of it. And then he finds out that he's been misdiagnosed. This is the actual origin story from the comic books. And like, I think it's Green Lantern in the comic books that actually apprehends him, who's also a millionaire. So they don't think to say, well, we're going to arrest you, but maybe I should help his sister or help him get his treatment. No, they just arrest him and send his ass to jail, and Clock King never shows up again until he's on the Suicide Squad and he gets blown up. They come up with this backstory, this incredibly interesting, dark backstory that sets up why he wants revenge on Green Lantern in the comic book and this Batman perfectly. Like, nothing sets up wanting revenge on someone than someone doing this to you when all you did was try to get what was yours. I added the element of him being military and trying to get treatment through the VA. It provides a nice commentary on the VA hospital and how shitty that system actually is and how it should be better, frankly. And also gives commentary on how military men are treated when they come back to the U.S. Also, it explains Clock King's abilities a little better. His perfect punctuation is a byproduct of him timing bank heists, which makes him obsessed with time. There you go. He's also a clock repairman. So we keep all the elements from the comic book, add some more to it. I think it's a good backstory. I think you could put this guy in an actual Batman movie and it would be fucking awesome. Clock King says, "Let me back. I can save her. I can change it." He tries to reach out and touch the mirror again, and the hat catches his hand. "Do not touch that again. You won't stay sane the second time." Clock King says, "I saw my sister. It was real. I can save her." And the hat says, "You saw nothing. It is Aquarium, a magic torture device. Very old. I told you not to touch anything." Clock King says again, "I saw her. I held her. I watched her die again and again, but I can save her. I have to go back." And the hat says, "It's not real. You can't change everything." He reaches his hand through a portal and comes out with a vial of blue liquid. "Drink this. It'll help. The Aquarium does things to your mind. The damage fades, but the pain lingers." We're going to say Clock King takes it and drinks it, and he kind of settles down a little bit. The hat turns to the others. "Nobody touches anything." They all nod vigorously. We're going to see them continue through. The section they move through is a bunch of wheels and tires in a gigantic pile. And then the path changes, and now it's a pile of books haphazardly stacked around the path they walk. Flatline asks him how the hell he got the hat, and Chemo says, "I was wondering the same thing." The hat looks up, and we see a very quick flash of his backstory. We see him as an orphan boy in the streets of Tokyo. His clothes are torn, and we can see his ribs. He's clearly starving and sickly. Suddenly, the top hat just magically manifests next to him. The young boy looks at it and picks it up. He reaches inside and pulls out a bowl of rice. He reaches in again and pulls out a bottle of wine. He smiles and scarfs down the food, and we see him reach in for more, and it comes back. Then we cut to the hat. He says, "I bought it at a pawn shop for $30. Guys didn't know what they had." Chemo says, "You're kidding." And the hat says, "Nope. This thing gave me free booze for life. I'll always be grateful to that pawn shop." Flatline says, "You've got an alcohol problem, man." And the hat says, "It's not the problem, it's the solution. Trust me, kids, someday you'll grow up and wish you had endless supply of free booze." Chemo said, "I don't think that'll be my problem. I don't drink anything anymore." The hat says, "Now that sounds like my hell." Ah, here it is. 7 stones are fixed on the ground in a circle, each carved up with strange magic symbols. They form a circle. The hat says, "Everyone, gather around the center, hurry." They all gather, and the hat cuts open his finger with a knife. He lets blood drip onto one of the stones, and it begins to glow. The hat places his hand upon it. "Everyone keep your arms and legs inside the circle." Sportsmaster says, "What is this, a theme park ride?" The hat says, "Fine, asshole, leave them out and lose them." He turns to the stone and places his hand on it once more. "I request travel," he says. The stone flashes twice. The hat says, "Belle Reve Prison." The screen is blasted with white light, and the circle finds themselves in the middle of chaos. They are now inside of Belle Reve Prison. Prisoners are escaping their cells and are armed with weapons. They're killing each other in riots as guards try to stop them. They're also killing guards. We see the hat reach his hand up, and then his hat appears inside of it magically. He puts it back on his head and then gives it a fond pat. Sportsmaster looks around the prison. "Well, shit, this place is a mess." Shade says, "We're too late. She's already begun her plan." Clock King says, "We can stop it. We just have to get to Waller and our bombs before they do." We're going to cut to the control room. We see Clue Master watching the screens. He notices the squad. He says, "They escaped. How did they manage to do that?" Nightshade says, "These are impressive. Give them a little challenge. Nothing too severe. I don't want to kill too many of them. I think they can handle these low-grade crooks." Clue Master says, "As you say." He taps the intercom button. "Attention, Belle Reve. Waller's little lapdogs have arrived in the prison. They want to lock you back up. Why don't you stop them?" It appears they're in the East Wing. We're going to cut back to the East Wing. We see Chemo. He says, "Oh shit." We see prisoners turn to look at them. Flatline says, "How are we going to get through this?" Clock King says, "We fight." We see a group of villains approach the squad. I'll probably flesh out which villains they are in particular later. Prisoner says, "I know you assholes. Like the voice said, you're Waller's bitches, the legendary Suicide Squad." Another prisoner laughs. "I say we kick their asses." Prisoner 1 says, "I think we should kill them." We see the group of prisoners shot from behind, and we see one of their orange jumpsuits. We zoom in on it. It says Belle Reve. And above that, we're going to see the words "The Suicide Squad versus" appear. This is our diegetic title for the third act, which is The Suicide Squad versus Belle Reve. And that's the end of part 2. So now I can kind of talk about what the third act of this movie actually is. It's not a heist, I lied. It is actually a knuckle-dragging fight for survival inside of Belle Reve against all of the other prisons in prison there. Will the Suicide Squad pan out in time? Are they going to be able to stop Nightshade at whatever she's planning? What will this movie's ending be like? And which of these people are going to die? You're going to have to find out next time. I'm going to the outro now.
Okay, my dog is kind of breaking the illusion here, but I'm actually recording the outro 10 seconds after I recorded the intro. And this animal has yet to leave me alone the entire time. Yes, I'm talking to you, animal. You know what you are. You know what you are. So yeah, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know who you think is going to live or die in the finale. If you have not done it yet, I posted a poll, which is relevant to the third act. It's just a choice between 2 numbers. What do they mean? What does it mean? I don't know. But whatever happens is your fault. It's your fault if you pick a number and something happens as a consequence. You're so loud. What is this? So go ahead and fill out that poll. If I can do an annotation, I'll do that. If not, I'm not. All right. See you all in the next one. Adios. Hello, I am Bjorn and I do movies, and today we are doing the finale of The Suicide Squad Part 4. I'm very excited for this one. This is the end of the movie we've been building up to, and oh, dog interruption, there it is, folks. We thought we were gonna go one Suicide Squad episode without dog interruption. I'm gonna like have to get like a crate and just leave you in it while I'm recording. Oh my god. I know y'all have been looking forward to this, so I won't make you wait much longer. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
Alright, we're picking up right where we left off. The Suicide Squad has arrived in Belle Reve. They are assaulted by a group of regular criminals, and among them we also finally see Double Down, who appears briefly in the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's movie, Angle Man, who is a supervillain obsessed with angles, and Killer Moth, a guy with moth wings. They've all got their suits and stuff, as we saw in the last part. The squad is preparing for a fight as the crooks close in. Electrocutioner says, "I got this. You guys go ahead. I can hold these guys." Clock King asks if he's sure. Electrocutioner says, "Yeah, I actually think you guys might be a hindrance to me. I'm gonna go all out." We see him adjust the settings on his arms to the highest they'll go. "Sparks are really gonna fly," he says. "You guys just make sure my bomb doesn't go off." Clock King says, "We will." The rest of the squad peels off and leaves him. Double Down steps forward and says, "Where do those bastards think they're going?" Electrocutioner says, "If you want them, you're gonna have to make it through me." All the criminals are gonna laugh. Killer Moth is gonna say, 10 versus 1. This'll be easy. We're gonna hear the opening notes of AC/DC's Thunderstruck start to play. Electrocutioner is gonna say, "Here's the thing. I have a propensity for shocking people, and let me tell you, you guys are going to get shocked. You didn't even notice you were barefoot." They all look down, and for the first time they realize they're wearing no shoes. Fairly common in prisons, actually. And they're standing on metal grates. Electrocutioner unleashes a huge volley of electricity. It flies off his suit and jumps from man to man, also electrifying the floor. They all begin to light a flame and burst with bolts of electricity. We see Killer Moth try to fly away, but his wing snags a metal pipe. His wings burst into flames like he's been hit by a bug zapper. Kind of a fun little visual gag. At this point, we're going to hear the chorus of Thunderstruck hit. Many of the men are on fire now. Their heads are blowing up. All the electricity. We're going to see Double Down's head with all the cards pop in particular. A couple of playing cards fall around him and they're lit on fire by the electricity, adding to the visual spectacle of the sequence. And then we hear the fire alarm go off. Water begins to sprinkle down on top of Electrocutioner. He has only a moment. He says, "Oh fuck." And he begins to electrify himself as he's soaked with water. We see his head explode as his bomb's detonated by the electricities. And that's a rip for Electrocutioner. I think we all kind of knew that one was coming. We're going to cut to the prison hall. We see 2 prison guards firing at escaping prisoners. They kill 2 before one prisoner kills the left guard. The other shoots the criminal. He turns to find Cavalier. Cavalier stabs him in the stomach.
and in the heart with his rapier. He says, "You made the mistake of imprisoning the great Cavalier." He swishes his sword around in a very dramatic gesture, then wipes the blood off it with his shirt. Suddenly we hear the sound of metal scraping against concrete. Cavalier slowly turns around and we see the Reaper letting his scythes drag against the wall. Sparks fly up, making him look really menacing. "Cavalier," the Reaper says, "you have murdered and robbed. You have sinned, and the Reaper judges you guilty." Cavalier says, "Oh, come on, man," and sort of shrugs in a sarcastic gesture. "I'm a gentleman thief. I take from the rich and I give to the poor." The Reaper says, "You murder and steal. Call it what you will, my scythes will taste your blood." Cavalier says, "You can try." He swishes his sword around dramatically. They fight, and the Reaper rips Cavalier apart. It's a complete slaughter. Every single thing Cavalier tries to do, Reaper just deflects or cuts. He cuts him to ribbons. It's a pretty cool fight. Goes on for a little bit. Just imagine it in your heads. The Reaper takes off Cavalier's sword arm with a swing of his scythes. Cavalier falls to the floor, clutching at his armless hand. The Reaper says, "Reap what you sow, Cavalier." Cavalier says, "No, please, no." And the Reaper stands over him before stabbing him in the chest. He lifts his bleeding body up with the scythes and looks him in the eyes as he dies. Then he lets the body fall to the floor. He turns and walks down the hall, leaving the body behind. We're going to cut to the Belle Reve hallway. The Suicide Squad turns the corner and finds a group of escaping convicts. I mostly picked people who are visually distinctive and would immediately kind of tell you what their thing is just by looking at them, as well as a few returning characters. Specifically, besides the normal, crooks that are among them, we see Cryonic Man, an obscure ice-themed villain with like an ice cryo pack on his back. As far as I can tell, this guy is just a complete ripoff of Dr. Freeze, but like worse in every conceivable way. We've got Codpiece, a classic gag DC character. He's got a giant penis cannon. Again, he would be a visually self-explanatory character. Calendar Man, who briefly appeared, played by Sheen Gunn, and then Mad Dog, the YouTube banned word guy, he's just like a redneck criminal guy. In his first iteration, he's carrying around a bat. As soon as they see the squad, they immediately draw their weapons. Shade says, "I don't have time for this." He throws out a hand, and one of the spots from his duster flies off. It lands behind the goons. He teleports to it and then runs down the hall. The convicts watch him leave, but he's already too far away for them to catch him, so they turn back to the Suicide Squad. Flatline says, "Well, great. The one guy who knows what the fuck is going on just left us." Cryonic Man looks at them and says, "What's all this then?" And he stops. "Hey, I know you. You guys are the Suicide Squad. You want to lock us back up." Flatline says, "Honestly, we really don't." Codpiece says, "Sure, and I don't want to spend some alone time with you." He winks at her awkwardly. Flatline says, "Hey, how about that? Now I kind of do want to kill you." "What the fuck is that supposed to be anyway?" gesturing to his codpiece. Codpiece says, It's my codpiece. It's badass. You should be impressed." Flatline starts to laugh out loud. Codpiece fires a bullet from his codpiece. Flatline bends over, laughing, and the bullet misses her. It bounces harmlessly off Chemo, leaving a small dent. Flatline realizes he fired at her. She pulls on her knife rope and swings it. She catches it with her foot and launches it into Codpiece's leg. It bounces off the armor there and crashes into the coolant tank on the back of Cryonic Man. It explodes, killing Cryonic Man and freezing a large area. Codpiece is flash frozen. He falls over and shatters on the floor. The hall is covered in ice, and ice continues to fly forward. The squad dodges, except for Chemo, who's partially frozen to the wall. Sportsmaster clicks his heels a certain way, and ice skates pop out. This is another thing he has in his boots. There's a bit of a running gag with this guy that he always has things in his boots in the comic books, I've noticed. Earlier we saw him with skis, and now we've got him with ice skates. He pulls the staff off his back and turns it into a hockey stick with a razor blade at the end by turning the hilt. This is a thing we see him with all the time in the comic books. Sportsmaster says, "I've been looking for an excuse to use this for ages." He starts to skate across the ice. He uses the razor end of a hockey stick to behead a prisoner. He laughs like a kid. Calendar Man runs forward with a knife. He slips on the ice and falls down. Clock King shoots him in the head while he's on the ground. A guy tries to attack Flatline with a shiv. The hat pulls a fireball out of the hat and then throws it, and engulfs the prisoner in fire. He starts screaming and flailing. He tries to run away but slips on the ice also. While he's on the floor, he dies, burning to death. Chemo tries to pull his leg free from the ice but can't. Mad Dog runs up to him and starts to hit him over the head with the bat. He hits him twice, and we hear Mad Dog start to howl. Chemo's unaffected though, because he's a giant metal man. He just grabs Mad Dog with his hand and opens his finger of his suit. We watch Mad Dog get a lethal dose of radiation. He bleeds from his eyes, gets the boils, then he kind of just falls over dead. 5 more guys turn the corner. The Hat pulls a black sphere from his hat. He throws it to Sportsmaster and says, "Sportsmaster!" Sportsmaster catches it and then drops it on the floor. He hits it with his hockey stick and it lands right in the middle of the incoming villains. It lets out a small puff of smoke and then a quick flash of light. Sportsmaster says, "What the hell, that's it?" But the men are all stopped in their tracks. They begin to slide apart piece by piece, almost as if they've been completely diced up. Sportsmaster says, "Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that?" And the Hat says, I really don't know. That was not what I was trying to pull a grenade out of my bag. Sometimes it doesn't quite understand what I want. Chemo manages to break free from the ice. He pushes Mad Dog's body off himself. Flatline looks around at all the dead bodies and says, "I think we just killed half the prison." Clock King snorts. Sportsmaster says, "Hey guys, you should take a look at this." He's standing near the bodies of those that were killed by the weird grenade thing. They all walk over and we see Waller. Blood surrounds her and it's flowing from open wounds, but she's still breathing. For those who don't remember, she was stabbed by Cluemaster in the last episode. The Hat says, "She's still alive." Flatline says, "Holy hell, she looks like Swiss cheese." The Hat says, I think I can save her." He sets the hat on the ground and starts to dig through it. Sportsmaster says, "You better. She's the only one who can give us our fucking pardons." Clock King says, "Sportsmaster with me. We're going to secure the bomb room. The rest of you, guard Waller and keep her alive. We need those pardons." Chemo says, "We can do that." Clock King and Sportsmaster continue down the prison hall. We see Flatline searching Waller's pockets. She pulls out her phone. She lifts up Waller's finger to it and unlocks the phone. Chemo asks, "What are you doing?" And Flatline says, "Snooping." We're going to cut to Shade. He enters the briefing room, the one with all the chairs, the projector. We see this in every movie. As soon as he enters the briefing room, he sees Nightshade standing there. She smiles warmly when she sees him. "It makes sense it would be you here first, Shade. You were there at my beginning, and now I get to be there for your end." Shade says, "I'm not the one who will be losing this fight. In the state you're in, you can't withstand the Madness Vest." We see the weird shapes across this duster begin to undulate and move. Nightshade smiles and even giggles a little bit. "You may strike a frightening form to them, but do you know what I see when I look at you? Just the man. I fear nothing, Shade." Shade says, "This duster can do more than show fear." The shapes and colors in the duster flow into his hand and form a knife. He teleports forward by throwing one of the dots like he did earlier, and then tries to attack her. She dodges into the shadows, then reappears from the shadows under the desk. The shadows begin to coalesce into her hands, and she forms a spear made entirely from blackness. Nightshade says, "Oh, my Shade, you should come back to me. The people of this dimension just don't have the charm you do. It was you who freed me all those years ago." Shade replies with, "The greatest mistake of my life. I won't let you win. You've killed enough." And Nightshade says, "You're the one who's going to stop me. Oh, please, Shade. I made you. All that power you wield is mine. You were nothing before me." Shade attacks her with the color knife. She bats it away with her spear. He attacks her again and again, but she blocks and dodges with ease. Nightshade goes on the offensive. She attacks him with the spear twice. Shade dodges both, but barely. Her next attack is going to be a hit. The colorful shapes flow off his duster and onto his hand. They form a shield. He uses it to block the blow. Nightshade barely even notices. "I even miss our long conversations," she says. "You loved me once. We could have that again. What's worth saving here? This place is rotten to the core, even worse than your meta." Shade says, "The people. There is good here. You just choose not to see it." He rushes her with the swirling dagger once more. Nightshade just pulls the shadows up like a cloak, and then sends Shade through it. He vanishes from the room. We cut and see him stumble out of the shadows inside of a swamp, the swamp outside Belrive. He can see the prison in the distance. He turns and says, "No!" He starts to run back towards the shadow, but it's already closed. It's too late. He then turns and starts to run back towards the prison. We're going to cut back to Nightshade. She dusts her hands off, almost sarcastically, then turns to see Clock King and Sportsmaster enter the room. They both pull out weapons. Nightshade holds up a hand in a peace gesture. "At least hear me out before it comes to blood. Do that and I won't stop you from killing me." Sportsmaster says, "You expect me to believe that? My guess is you're stalling for your friends." Nightshade says, "I don't need allies to kill you." The lights begin to flicker. The shadows of the room are dragged towards her. They surround her and lift her up off the ground. She's floating on a web of shadows. She sends shadows snaking forward. They climb up Sportsmaster and Clock King's bodies. The shadows climb into their mouths and block them. We see each of them desperately try to scratch at them to remove the shadows, but it's useless. Nightshade lets a satisfied smile creep across her face, then flicks her hands. The shadows vanish, freeing the two squad members. They each start breathing heavily. Panic is in their eyes. They've realized they're facing a threat they can't handle. Nightshade says, "Are you satisfied? Hear me out and I know you'll join me." Clock King says, "Talk." We're going to cut back to Waller's body. Waller is coughing up blood. Her face is pale with blood loss. Flatline studies her phone with a frown. We see Chemo say, "We have to hurry. She won't last much longer." The hat says, "I'm working on it." He pulls his hand out of the hat with a bottle inside of it. It's got glowing purple liquid in it. "Got it," he says. He starts to move the bottle towards Waller. Flatline catches his hand. "Don't," she says. "What do you mean, don't?" the hat says. Flatline says, "There is no pardon." Chemo says, "What?" Flatline says, "It's all here. She wasn't going to let us go." It says, "In light of their exceptional performance, I believe it would be of use to keep the current team in Bellree for the foreseeable future." The hat's face turns to one of anger. "She tricked us. I knew a pardon was too good to be true." Flatline says, "We have to let her die. She'll never let us be free, not until our sentence is up. But if she dies..." The hat nods. He slowly puts the bottle back into his hat. "Now that you mention it, this wasn't the right stuff. I'll just have to keep looking." We see Waller cough up blood again. Her eyes turn to look at them frantically. She's scared. Chemo says, "Let's talk about this. We're talking about killing someone innocent." Flatline says, "I don't want to die, Matthew. She'll kill us, sooner or later. I've seen it. We don't have a choice. Besides which, Waller is hardly innocent." Chemo looks down at Waller. Her breathing becomes strained and then stops. The last of the blood gurgles from her mouth and she dies. Chemo says, "This doesn't feel right." Flatline says, "She made her choice and we made ours." Chemo shakes his head. "I don't like it." Flatline says, "Neither do I. But if anyone had it coming, it was her. We're almost free. We can be normal again, just like you said you wanted. Come on. We gotta catch up with the others." We're gonna cut back to the briefing room. We'll see Nightshade start her little speech. She says, "Your captor is dead, and now you're free. I won't stop you from walking out of this prison. As you can see, it was actually my goal. But it's not my only one. I have lofty ambitions for this world. I've seen horrible suffering here, and I know you've seen it too. Abandoned by your own society, forced to fight for a government that hates you. I once stood where you stand now." She turns her head and reveals a scar from where her bomb was implanted. For the first time, we understand that Nightshade was a member of the Suicide Squad. Sportsmaster says, "You were in the Suicide Squad?" And Nightshade says, "Most of my followers were. Even Orca is connected. She lost her son to one of Waller's missions. Waller didn't even have the decency to remember her son's last name. Why would she? I saved those I could from her and let them take their revenge. I gave them purpose. I could give you the same. Don't you want to hit the government that tortured and used you where it hurts? Don't you want to bring them to their knees?" Clock King asks how. Nightshade casually strolls over to the computer and plugs in a flash drive. She turns on the projector. A map of the US pops up and we begin to see red circles appear around it. "Coordinated chemical weapon attacks, targeting cities with large government facilities, will cut the head off the snake. These prison escapes were only a distraction for the so-called heroes. By the time they're done capturing their escaped convicts, it will be too late." Sportsmaster looks at the map. "That's Central City. My daughter lives there." Nightshade holds up a comforting hand. "We can warn your loved ones. As for the others, the power Waller hunted is real. I can bring the dead worthy of life back." Clock King looks at her and asks, "You can bring anyone back?" Nightshade says, "Anyone." The Sportsmaster says, "You're not seriously fucking listening to this. Shade warned us about her. I'm not about to help you blow up the entire country. I fucking live in it. Come on, Talkman, think. How many kids will she kill? You said I could kill you if I wasn't interested. Well, I'm not." Nightshade says, "Very well." She holds her hands out as if surrendering. "If that's your choice, then you can continue to live under the heel of better men. Remain a witness to the suffering of those around you and do nothing." Sportsmaster pulls out his javelin. It snaps rigid. He begins to approach Nightshade. "Yeah, I've heard bullshit before," he says, "and you reek of it." He points the javelin towards her and prepares to stab her. We hear a gunshot. A bullet hole appears in Sportsmaster's head. Blood runs down his face, and he slumps to the floor dead. We see Clock King behind him, holding a smoking pistol. He looks down on Sportsmaster with a look of shocked guilt. He regains himself and looks to Nightshade. "I'll join you. I want to make them pay for what they did. I want them to hurt, and I want you to bring back my sister." Nightshade says, when this is all over, she will walk among the living again. I will mention that I came up with the idea of killing Sportsmaster because I put out a poll with several characters from the previous movie in it. And I could have made a mental note to myself that if someone who was still alive won the poll, I would kill them in the next movie, because I don't want anyone to get too comfortable liking a character. And of course, Sportsmaster won that poll. Unconnected to this, as soon as this video is done, there will be a pull-up with all of the living characters from this movie on it. If anyone wants to go there and vote for their favorite character, go right ahead. I promise there are no consequences to it. So, just vote, put your favorite character on that list. Let me know what you think. I love to hear from you guys. Nightshade says, when this is all over, she will walk among the living again. Clock King nods. Nightshade says, I just need one thing from you. Clock King says, what? She says, I want your friends to join us. I had hoped to avoid death of any of them. This was, she gestures to Sportsmaster, unfortunate. As I said, I can relate to your struggles. Wait for them here. Join them again. Pretend you're one of them. Say you don't know what happened. And when the time comes, help them see reason. Clock King says, I can do that. A shadow portal appears behind Nightshade. She says, good. I'll be watching. And she vanishes. We see Flatline and the rest of the squad enter the room. She spots Sportsmaster's body. Flatline says, oh shit, what happened? Clock King says, a prison guard shot him. Didn't know who we were. We see Sportsmaster's blue ghost begin to appear from his body. This is from Flatline's perspective, obviously. He tries to speak, then feels the bullet hole in his head. He can't talk. He tries and tries again, but no words come out of his mouth. He looks at Flatline, and his eyes grow wide as saucers. He turns and points to Clock King. Flatline turns to look where he's pointing. Clock King notices. He says, oh, I forgot about your powers. A rare oversight. Flatline runs at him with fury. She pulls the knife rope out. She yells, you bastard! She throws the knife towards him, and he barely dodges it by jumping to the side. He pulls his gun out. Chemo says, what the hell are you two doing? Flatline yells, it was him! Clock King is about to shoot Flatline. She pulls her knife rope back, knocking the gun from his hand and slicing his arm. Chemo starts to point his arm towards Clock King. Clock King rushes Flatline. She throws a punch, but he catches it. Flatline kicks him in the shin, and then he pulls her arm free. Chemo says, I can't use my powers. Flatline, you're too close. We can see the hat digging through his hat. He says, I've got something for this. I just have to find it. God, I really need to organize this. Flatline goes on the offensive. She throws kicks and punches, but Clock King blocks everything. His timing is impeccable. Finally, Flatline lands a kick. She tries to follow it up with an elbow. The Clock King dodges, then punches her hard in the face. He hits her again and again until blood starts to run from her nose and mouth. She pulls her knife rope out and tries to cut his arm. He moves back, and Flatline throws the knife rope once more. Clock King catches it out of the air and then pulls the rope hard. Flatline is pulled towards him. He puts her in a chokehold and then holds the knife to her throat. He digs it in. He says, I'm going to walk out of this prison. Flatline tries to struggle, but he pushes the knife harder against her neck. We see blood begin to well from the tip. You two aren't going to stop me, or I will slit her throat ear to ear. Do you understand? Chemo says yes, and the hat says yes as well. Clock King says, all right. He starts to walk back to the hall using Flatline as a hostage. You see them move past the cells and the dead bodies on the floor. Chemo and the hat follow cautiously behind them. Flatline says, you're gonna rot in hell for this. Clock King says, oh, I know, but your hands are just as dirty as mine. Flatline says, I don't kill my own. Clock King says, but you would if the price were high enough. That's just the sort of people we all are. Suddenly, a man steps into the hall in front of them. This is Penny Plunderer, and a surprise reveal. He says, the Suicide Squad. So we meet at what the hell are you doing? He notices that they're like killing each other. Clock King says, I don't have time for this. Move, damn it. Penny Plunderer says, no, I'm the Penny Plunderer, and I'm here to destroy you. Flatline says, I'm sorry, did you say the Penny Plunderer? If you're gonna plunder somebody, start with this asshole. She tries to struggle against Clock King. He says, shut up, and puts the knife tighter against her neck. We see more blood well. Penny Plunderer says, you were trying to put us back in prison. I heard. That makes you a copper. As in the pun for a police officer. I hate cops as much as I love pennies. Clock King says, I don't give a fuck who you are. I said move, damn it. Penny Plunderer yells, eat copper. He throws pennies up into the air and then they fly towards the squad like bullets. This is a particularly zany sequence, and I thought it would be really funny to put it in after a very serious dramatic moment. One rips into Flatline's arm, another catches Clock King in the shoulder. He recoils back and Flatline slips away. She scrambles back towards Chemo in the hat. Clock King yells, no! He turns to catch her, but the Penny Plunderer yells, you dare turn your back on the Penny Plunderer? You think you can mock me like everyone else? Try your luck against copper wires. The electrical wiring that runs up and down the prison begins to move like a snake. It flies out and catches Clock King's arm. The main lights in the room begin to flicker on and off, and the red backup lights kick on. If you have never seen this, often places will have red backup lights that run in like a backup generator if the main power infrastructure is damaged. This is going to give our final fight some cool atmosphere. With his free hand, Clock King pulls out his pistol. He fires 4 shots down the hall, 2 hit Penny Plunder in the chest. He coughs up blood and falls to the floor. He says, "Lead. No fair." Of course, this version of Penny Plunder is not like the comic books. They give him the ability to control copper, the element specifically. So pennies, copper wires, and that's really it. He's more powerful, but only marginally. The wires fall away from Clock King's arm. He turns just in time to see Flatline reach Chemo. Clock King runs around the corner just as the finger of Chemo's suit opens. Chemo says, "He got away." Flatline says, "You gotta go after him." Chemo says, "I can't do that. You're hurt. We have to get you help. Let's get you back where we know it's safe. I don't know how many more of these insane assholes are running around." The Hat says, "I've got something that can help her. It is so much harder to find stuff when you're sober." He pulls out the same purple bottle from before. "It'll take an hour or so, but you'll feel better. At least I think." He reaches in again and pulls out a bottle of tequila. Chemo asks, "How's that going to help her?" And the Hat says, "It's not. It's going to help me." He takes the cap off and takes a swig. We're going to cut to Clock King. He's moving through the prison in a hurry. He keeps looking over his shoulder until he feels it's safe. He stops and puts his hand to the wound on his shoulder. It comes away with blood. He looks ahead for a moment. In the flickering red light of the emergency lights, we see the Reaper standing still. His sides still drip with the blood from Cavalier. He studies Clock King, then says, "I know you. The Clock King. You're a killer. I find you guilty." Clock King says, "I don't know who you are, but you really don't want to fuck with me right now. I'm having a hell of a day." The Reaper just walks towards Clock King. We see him in flashes through the flickering red lights. Between the flickers, the Reaper vanishes. Clock King searches the darkness around him, but he can't find him. We hear the Reaper's voice come from the darkness. "Tick tock, tick tock. Your time is up, Clock King." He launches an attack from the darkness. He scratches a large gash across Clock King's chest. Clock King begins to fire wildly into the dark with his pistol. In the brief flashes of the gunfire, we see the Reaper move in and slice again. This time it's Clock King's arm. Clock King drops the gun from his hand. Clock King pulls the knife free from his belt. We see him spin around in the flashing light looking for the Reaper. Suddenly Reaper appears again. He makes a swing for Clock King's head. Clock King blocks it with his knife. Reaper swipes across his chest with the second scythe. Clock King falls to the floor on his knees. The Reaper looms above him. He raises his thighs high into the air. He says, "Reap what you've sowed." A knife sticks through Reaper's throat. He feels it with a hand, and then spins, attacking Cluemaster, who stabbed him. Even with the blood running from his throat, he fights. He slashes and attacks. Cluemaster dodges and barely survives. We see him getting kind of scratched up and cut. Even in this state, the Reaper is a force to be reckoned with. But he slows and falls to the ground before dying from blood loss. Cluemaster, who's sliced up and terrified, says, "Jesus." Clock King says, "Are you with Nightshade?" And Cluemaster says, "I am. She should be coming for us any time now." He holds out a hand and helps Clock King to his feet. "Welcome to the Shadow Society, Clock King." Almost as soon as he says it, a shadowy portal opens up next to him. Cluemaster says, "Follow me." He steps into the portal and Clock King follows him. We're going to cut to the briefing room again. We see Flatline entering the briefing room with the rest of the squad. Shade is studying Sportsmaster's body. He says, "I take it they're gone?" Flatline says, "Yeah." Shade says, "Damn it all. I failed." Flatline goes to Sportsmaster's body. We see Sportsmaster's ghost again. He tries to speak, and yet again he fails. He shakes his head and then walks over to the computer. He points to the flash drive Nightshade left. Flatline turns the computer on and pulls up the flash drive. She sees the map. "Holy shit," she says. "Guys, take a look at this." The rest of the squad walks over. They look on the map with horror. Chemo says, "That's got to be every city in the US. What do the red circles mean?" Shade says, "I've got a few ideas. None of them are good." Flatline says, "We have to stop this." And Chemo says, "How?" Flatline says, "Shade, you know their leader." Shade says, "I do." He says, "She's a destroyer, a creature from another world that wants only to spread darkness and death. She is the shadow cast by a world of pure black." Flatline says, "Well, I want to kill her." Shade says, "That will not be easy. It may even be impossible. If you want your world to survive, we're going to have to find a way." Flatline says, "I think I know somebody who can help. If she can't kill this shadow, then nothing can." Chemo says, "Wherever we go, we need to make it fast. It won't be long before the police show up. The Hat drunkenly throws his hands up. He's lounging in one of the chairs in the briefing room. He tosses his hat to the ground and it grows big. That's no issue. Give me the location of your friend. We'll take the travel stones again. It's no problem, he says drunkenly. Flatline says, give me a second. She turns to Sportsmaster's ghost. She says, are you ready? He nods. She says, I'm sorry. Touches his spirit and then Sportsmaster's ghost vanishes. She bends over and closes the eyes of his body. She looks somber. She says, he was a jerk and an asshole, but I liked him. He didn't deserve to die like this. All he wanted was to get back to his kid, to be better. I'm gonna get revenge. Take us here. She shows the Hat her phone. He sort of drunkenly tries to look at it, and then nods. They enter the door to the Hat. We're gonna see them sort of walking through the narrow hallways and twisting labyrinth of the Hat for a little bit, while the song Hope in Hell plays, sort of letting the somber moments that followed set in. And then we're going to see them arrive at the stones from before. The Hat cuts his hand and places on the stones. He says the address, and then there's a flash of light. We're going to cut to a large house with a nice yard. The squad appears on the lawn. They all look around. Flatline says, this is nicer than I was expecting. Chemo says, who is your friend? Flatline says, you wouldn't know her. She walks up to the door and rings the bell. We hear a girl's voice call out from inside. The girl says, I'll get it. The door unlocks, revealing Dorothy Spinner, the character from the last movie who can summon Candlemaker and any other imaginary friend she has. She looks up at Flatline and gasps. She says, Flatline, you got out. Flatline says, something like that. Dorothy hugs her. She says, I'm so glad you're okay. We heard you guys were on another mission. I was worried. Flatline says, that's actually why I'm here. We need some help. Are your friends around? We hear another shout from inside the building. It's a male voice. He says, it depends on who's asking. We see Bloodsport step into the entryway. This is, of course, Idris Elba's Bloodsport from The Suicide Squad. He has his transforming gun in his hand. He says, well, shit. Did Waller send you? She knows better than to play games with us. Flatline says, Waller is dead. He lowers the gun. Bloodsport says, are you sure? Flatline said, I saw the body myself. We made sure she died. We couldn't be here if she hadn't. He nods as if it makes sense and says, alright, follow me. I have to do something. They move into the house. It's got a lot of nice furniture and some paintings. It's basically a mansion. Flatline says, all this is yours? Dorothy says, not exactly. We move a lot. He says it's more like we're borrowing the house, but it's without permission. She says, where's Sportsmaster? He was supposed to be on the mission too. Flatline says, he didn't make it. And Dorothy says, oh. We follow Bloodsport into a room filled with computers. We see Ratcatcher 2 sleeping on a couch. She wakes up as they walk by. What's with all the noise? Who are these people? Bloodsport says, friends for now. Ratcatcher shrugs and lays back down. Bloodsport takes a seat at the computer and starts typing. Flatline looks over his shoulder. What are you doing? Bloodsport says, pissing on Waller's grave. We see him upload the Court of Maltese files onto the internet. When he's done, he turns to face them. He says, what do you want? Flatline says, we ran into something bad. A group that could hurt a lot of people. She hands him the flash drive. He plugs it into the computer and looks at the map. What is this? Shade says, a plan to do harm to your world created by a creature called Nightshade. I promise that this is only the beginning. Nightshade will stop at nothing to destroy your world. Bloodsport turns to Dorothy and says, do you trust them? Dorothy says, I trust Flatline. She saved my life. And she's nice. Bloodsport says, okay, then we'll help. But if I find out you're fucking with me, I'll kill you. Suddenly the back door kicks open. We see Harley Quinn, Boomerang, King Shark, and Blockbuster enter through the back door. King Shark is covered in dirt and blood. Harley says, Nanawe, you're not supposed to eat the chickens, you're supposed to eat the eggs. King Shark says, I'm sorry, I was hungry. Blockbuster says, Blockbuster. Again, these are all repeating their known character traits. Harley says, Dubois, King Shark totally fucked up that guy's garden and, oh, we have guests. Bloodsport says, some more strays from Waller. Chemo looks at them and says, just who are you guys? To which Bloodsport replies, we're the Suicide Squad. We're going to cut the credits and hear the song Stick Up by Grandson play. So I guess I can talk about what the second part of this is going to be. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's the Suicide Squads, as I'm probably going to call it. Maybe there'll be an undertitle, I don't know. But it's going to be 3 different Suicide Squads all fighting each other. The Shadow Society, who used to be the Suicide Squad. Obviously, the Suicide Squad, 2016 squad, combined with different iterations from my movies. All in one team. The reason I felt comfortable bringing in Bloodsport in these guys is I think it's pretty clear at this point with what's happening at DC that there's not going to be a Suicide Squad 3, a real one. So I felt comfortable enough using these characters now, knowing that we probably aren't going to see them again. That would be my guess. I think the next movie is my favorite one. It's really weird and wacky. There's a lot more death in it. This one I was pretty tame on the deaths, actually. And I should point out that y'all filled out a survey I did on my channel, a poll, choosing between 2 and 3, and I want you to know you saved the Hat's life. I was really contemplating killing his ass, and the poll that said there would be 3 members, it was how many members would there be left on the squad at the end, and 3 won out. So you saved the Hat, so congratulations. So there is an after credits scene. We're going to see Plastique in some sort of base. I don't know where it is. She's standing next to Nightshade. She says, "You didn't tell him the truth." Nightshade says, "Clock King's not quite ready for it yet." Plastique says, "What, is he not keen on ending the world?" Nightshade says, "He will be. He just has to see the true vision we have for the future." She leans over the table, and the camera pans over, and we can see a map of the whole world. Red dots are almost entirely across it, placed in every major city and country. Nightshade says, "For now, let him believe it's just a chemical attack, and only in the United States." She looks out a window. It overlooks a factory. We see one of the portals that Calculator made in the mall in the previous film. It's being built inside this base. Nightshade says, "Yeah, he wouldn't understand it yet." The camera pans back over to the map once more as we hear the song "End of the World" by Children of Aphrodite play. And we're going to cut the credits for good. This is the second after credit scene. We see a woman climbing through a metal fence in the rain. Lightning flashes and we see a sign that says, "Under quarantine by U.S. government." She moves through the dark until we see her enter a building. Lightning flashes again and we can see Comforton Mall. This is, of course, the mall where the final fight in Suicide Squad 3 happened. She continues to move through the mall until we see her reach the ruins of the portal that was created by Crazy Quilt and Calculator in the last movie. She places a hand on it and we see her cast some kind of magic, saying a strange language and moving her hands around to form runes in the air. We see illusions of people in the past. They're transparent and glow different colors. They reenact the events from the end of 3. We see the fight. We see Superman appear from the portal. We see Crazy Quilt get killed. We see Acid die. All of it happens. She swipes her hand and it begins to play faster. We see the ambulance arrive and pull Flatline out of the rubble. They start to move the bodies away. Scientists and military men come in and they start to move around the building quickly. We can see that they're studying the ruins of the portal. They continue to move in and out at lightning speed like you're playing it on fast forward. A single woman strolls in on the fast forward and begins to study the portal. The mysterious mage throws up a hand and stops it. She studies the illusion and we can see that it's Nightshade. The woman reaches out a wary hand and touches Nightshade. Her eyes glow wide and we see flashes of the future. We see Gotham City being destroyed by shadows. They cling to the buildings and destroy everything they touch. We see men and women and children running through the streets. They're getting grabbed by the shadows and ripped apart. In the last flash, we see Shade's dead body. Blood runs from his eyes and there's puncture wounds in his face and in his stomach and in his chest. And his cloak is missing. The woman steps back from her illusion and waves it all away. She says, "Oh my God." And we end for good. That's the last after credit scene. I won't say who that character is, but if you can guess it, let me know. Alright, well that was it. Once again, this dog is breaking the illusion that any time has passed between me recording the intro and the outro. I did kill Sportsmaster. I know a lot of y'all really liked him and weren't expecting that. You have zero sympathies for me. This is just a reminder, there is a poll up right now. Go vote for your favorite character from the movie, guys. No consequences at all to that poll. Literally nothing, so just don't even think about it, just go vote. Alright, thank you. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'll have the next Deadlands out pretty quickly and then the first Thunderbolts after that, so look forward to that. Alright, I'll talk to y'all later.